over the next few hours as we get you ready for the Bucs and the 49ers. We'll take you through the rest of the league. We're starting to kind of get to that time of year where we need to let you know what's going on in the rest of the NFC and where the 49ers sit in it. We will look back at a huge win over Jacksonville, the early start a week ago, where we are on the air at 7 o'clock, and the 49ers bounced back, and they were more that 5-0 team than they were the 0-3 team, so that is huge. We'll get into that. Brock Purdy has now got 17 starts under his belt. That's a full season, and his first start, ironically enough, was against these Tampa Bay Buccaneers, so we'll discuss that over the next hour as well. Defense, Steve Wilkes, all those kind of things. Chase Young, great first game, so we got a ton to go over the next few hours live here at Levi's Stadium. Good morning, boys. How you doing? How's everybody?
Doing well, man, as we enter week 11 here. First game the Niners have played at home since before the bye week, since they faced the Cincinnati Bengals. Joe Burrow, who, by the way, is not playing football anymore this year after a broken wrist. Surgery is going to end his season after Thursday night's loss to the Baltimore Ravens. But we're in a stretch here where the Niners got to start stacking some wins, man. I mean, this is the time of year. Weather's changing. It's getting cold. I walked into the stadium today. I saw it's not decorated yet, but they got the Christmas tree up. I kind of like that. It's like they're setting the mood, setting the tone, but they're like, you know what, we still got Thanksgiving to get through. Let's get through that Seattle game. And that's why this is a big one today. You want to get out of this one healthy. You want to make sure you're going into that Seattle game, I mean, not rested, but you're coming out of a bye week here and have to play 3 games here in less than 3 weeks is the way it lines up. So this is a tough stretch here. I mean, Seattle, come back home for one more, and then Seattle again. And then, of course, you got to go to take on the Baltimore Ravens and the Philadelphia Eagles when you get to December. So this is going to be a tough stretch here. It'd be nice to get this one, make it 2-0 out of the bye, because I think we all know 7 losses or 6 losses is going to be tough to end up with the number 1 seed.
Yeah, and you got to build on last week, right? I mean, you saw this defense play the way they played the first 5 weeks. You saw this offense play the way they played the first 5 weeks. Efficient. You put over 30 points on the scoreboard. Your defense, you shut down a team, a good Jacksonville team. And you get after him in the pass rush. Chase Young helps that out a lot. Nick Bosa, he's making plays. He's showing up on the screen. So it's about that, building on where you were last week, coming home, because this last home game wasn't a fun game to watch against Cincinnati. About 3 weeks ago or something like that.
Yep.
So it's good to see them play last week the way they played that first 5 weeks. And it's going to be tough. It's going to be a short week, too, because Thursday, you got to suit up again and play another football game.
Well, and, John, if they play the way they played last week, if they're consistently, and I do think, and we'll get into this, I think they're more of the team that we saw last week and the first 5 weeks than the team that we saw for that 3-game stretch. Are you guys with me on that?
I
mean, we've seen more of that. I know that's what we hope. I said that's my belief. I think we're going to see more of that, and we're going to see it against tougher teams here in the second half of the season.
Well, I think
if we see it, that'll be tough. Yeah.
Well, if history is any indicator of the last couple of years, this is what they do. And if you look at this team, too, and this is the key to everything around the NFL, and Dennis knows it better than anybody else, it's health. Well, what's interesting today about health is, do you play Trent Williams? I mean, Tampa's not very good, but you can't take anything for granted. He's got to turn around quickly on Thursday for an in-division game against a team that you're tied with. And we'll get into what Seattle's doing. They don't traditionally play well in L.A. They're taking on the Rams. Matthew Stafford is back, so they might get some help from the Rams. And then Seattle's schedule turns very, very difficult. So we can get into that whole conversation. But Trent Williams is still got that ankle, and that's always going to bother you. I would imagine he's probably going to play because you can't take any game for granted, but then he's got to turn around quickly to Seattle. Debo, huge difference. So offensively, you get those guys back. And then defensively, you're as healthy as you've been in a long time. Dre Greenlaw is feeling a lot better. You could tell that last week.
Kyle said as much, too. He said out of the bye week, he might have benefited more than anybody by the rest.
So all of a sudden, you're looking at this team saying, look, this is who they have, and they pretty much have everybody, and you hate to say that because you're going to have injuries. There's no question, but McAffrey's feeling better. You got a lot of health on this team. Well, over the last couple of years, when they've been healthy at this point of the season, they win games. Kyle Shanahan has struggled in September and October to an extent, November, December. January, this team, and I don't know if it's calloused, and Dennis, you can talk about it. I mean, just he gets them right at the right time. And what they did last week is what they've done the last couple of years when the calendar moves to November. They start playing really good football.
Yeah, and you think about that 3-week stretch when they lost those games, and it makes me wonder, was it health? Was it not having Debo out there? Was it not having Trent Williams out there? But on defensive side, it was a different looking defense, and it just makes you think, was it a game plan thing, the way they kind of planned the game against this defense? The defense just didn't show up for 3 weeks, and then all of a sudden last week, you show up. Is Chase Young that much of a difference on the defense that it changed it up a little bit? He just gave the defense a little bit of push, because the same guys were on the field for 3 weeks on the defense, as you saw the first 5 weeks. It just didn't look like the same defense.
Well, and the feel of the game itself, I mean, the pedal to the metal sort of I don't know, mentality. You talked about the game planning. Maybe it was rest, maybe it was energy, maybe it's health. I mean, I think all of these things come into play. Timing, game planning, like you said, the health, all of these things sort of have to meld together for this stuff to work. And what was interesting is I thought last week, and Kyle pointed this out, they had 2 turnovers that they forced in last week's game that resulted in punts. Their first 2 turnovers of the game against the Jaguars resulted in punts. We saw that stuff happen in the 3-game losing streak where they could force a turnover and then not result in getting some scores. But to go out and force 2 more and then have those result in scores, I mean, they scored 1 touchdown in the first half. 34-3 makes it look like it's an absolute ass kicking up and down the field, and it did feel like that. However, there were points in the game, and John, you and I have pointed this out a couple of different times, going back to the Giants game, the Cardinals game. There was one play there where they're in the red zone, they have a chance to score a touchdown, and if that happens, the game changes, but the Niners fended them off. In the 3-game losing streak, they were unable to fend off that crucial score or that crucial play by the opposition. Last week they did, and they got 3 touchdowns in the second half. That sort of keep pedal to the metal, keep pushing even after you don't score, because not everything was great for them. The Purdy touchdown early was big, but they made some mistakes and were able to counter it.
Well, I think the biggest thing that came out of last week, because that's how we expect Brock Purdy to play, and I don't mean the 3 touchdowns or anything. I statistically, I just mean don't turn the football over and play efficient.
Exactly.
The throw to Kittle was great. Kyle didn't like the first touchdown. But what dominated was the defensive line, and that's something back to 2019. That's why they went to the Super Bowl. So Jacksonville gets the ball, 3 and out, Niners score a touchdown. Jacksonville gets the ball, 3 and out, third down sack, by the way, on both possessions. Get a field goal, it's 10-0. Now you're playing from ahead in the 3-game losing streak. They're playing from behind. And then you look at the turnovers. Nick Bosa, after Chase Young got there first, forces a fumble at midfield. Nick Bosa chases down Trevor Lawrence, interception off a tip by Hufanga. In the middle of the field, Gravedigger goes down up the middle, and he forces Fred Warner to get it, for the easy interception. So you had 4 turnovers, and then, of course, Ambry Thomas had the other one. That was a whole weird play where everybody, the band is on the field. But 3 of the 4 forced by the defensive line, and you got 2 sacks in the first 2 possessions that allow your team to get out 10-0 and play from ahead. The defensive line and Chase Young, they were everything.
They dictated the game in time.
And you defended the run, right? I mean, that's something you didn't see in the first 3. I mean, the teams were running all up and down the field. Last week, you didn't see that. You saw, defensive ends that kind of kept contained, and you saw the gut pressure, but you saw them, defend the run well and make the team, a Jacksonville team, one-dimensional, and then you can get after them.
Opening drive for Purdy last week, as you said, he was aggressive. He was efficient, 3 for 3, 52 yards in the touchdown. And what's funny is we talked to Kyle, and we'll hear from him later in the pregame show here as we're live from Levi Stadium. But Kyle said, yeah, it was like a no. Okay, cool, thanks. Thank God, though, for the touchdown. He said, I was still pissed at the end. He was pissed about it, but again, because that's just something I think that's sort of a young guy mistake. You get aggressive going the other way, and you think, I can make that throw coming back. And he was okay, yeah. And he said, thank God Kittle didn't try to catch it. Because if he did, then we're in a different spot.
See, I know we'll get into this conversation. And look, this is a big picture type of thing where Kyle is trying to coach certain things out of Brock Purdy. But again,
it's intentional, right?
He is who he is. So there's only so much that you can do. And I don't mean this from a stylistic standpoint or arm strength, but it's Brett Favre-ish. And he feels like in the pocket he can make plays. So there's that fine line between Alex Smith's checkdowns and Brock and Brett Favre throwing it all over the place, and you got to find that happy medium. The thing that's interesting about that, depending on who you talk to, I like, and Kyle did say this. Well, he did not like the touchdown throw, the premise behind it. He liked the result, but didn't like the premise behind it. And then was asked again later in the week by Matt Mayoko, and I know you guys talked to him about it as well, is that he still was upset with it, but you don't want to coach it totally out of the kid because then it's check down. You're
trying to change who he is. Then if you change who he is foundationally here early in his career, then you're not going to have that.
So I'm okay.
Late. Yeah.
I don't love that play.
You want
I know why Kyle was pissed,
right.
But I do want the kid to be aggressive to an extent because then the fans get pissed because it's 3rd and 7 and you throw a 4-yard check down and it's 4th and 2 and you're punting. So there's that fine line between the guys got to take chances.
I don't like that, Dennis.
And check down Charlie quarterbacks who we all don't like.
But you want your quarterback, to be aggressive at some. I think Brock Purdy is getting a lot. He's getting confident. I mean, he's comfortable in the pocket. I mean, he's comfortable with the offense and the scheme of it. But you want him to be a little bit, aggressive every once. You want your quarterback to have that confidence enough to make that throw. I mean, if it was an interception in the end zone, it would not, it wouldn't turn out well. But it turned out good. So I mean, you want that confidence. You want that aggression. I mean, you want to be able to be, hey, I'm gonna go get this touchdown. I'm gonna get this first down. I'm gonna make that tough throw. So I mean, I'm not mad at him. I mean, because it was a touchdown, but I like the fact that he's getting some confidence. He's getting some swag to him a little bit.
Well, to take you back to one more thing that Steve Young said, I said this to you guys a couple of weeks ago. I told you this last week. He said, nobody's open in the red zone. Nobody's open when you're down there. And he used Brett Favre as the comp. He says, you got to throw guys open. So as much as you might think it's a bad throw, Steve Young was saying the same thing. He's like, you got to keep that aggressive nature because someday that won't be there, but someday that might be there. And some days you have to throw him open to get there. They get a touchdown out of it. He's 3 for 3, 52 yards. The result is no harm, no foul, sort of like Kyle and the team walking onto the field. And they score 3 plays later after what would have been an Ambry Thomas defensive touchdown. Adam Copeland, John Lund, Dennis Brown with you here from Levi Stadium. It's Week 11, Niners and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We got plenty more to come, and we got plenty of time until kickoff. We're still about 45 minutes away from the Week 11 slate kicking off. 105 kick here from Levi Stadium. We're with you until about 12 o'clock today. When we come on back, we'll get more into what happened last week against the Jacksonville Jaguars, where the Niners are going, and what the outlook is in the NFC in terms of the number 1 seed. Then we'll hear from 49ers general manager John Lynch. More to come here. By the way, we're streaming on twitch.tv/thesportsleader, YouTube, and the KNBR app. And, of course, just on KNBR.com. It's the 49ers and the Tampa Bay Bucs, only here on the Sports Leader.
I was kind of trying to talk. I don't usually talk, but this game, he had it coming. So, but he didn't say one word back. So,
Well, what'd you say? Just an example.
I was just screaming his name like, Baker, Baker, you good? Come on, pick it up. We want a challenge.
So this is throughout the game, not just on.
Yeah, and he was just looking at me like.
Boys, Nick Bosa, that was what was it, 2019, right? Yeah, it would have been the year they went to the Super Bowl. That was kind of his coming out party. A couple of sacks against Baker Mayfield, and was that a Sunday night game or a Monday night game? I can't remember which night. John.
Monday night, and it was Matt Breida on the first play going left for 80
Breida the
yards.
cheetah, that's right, yeah.
And it was over
and Baker,
at that point.
a couple of sacks against Baker from their days at Oklahoma and Ohio State, the flag plant, right, from Nick Bosa. And then this week he was asked about it, and he goes, yeah, no, we're all good now, man. I saw him at a golf tournament. He said hi, so we're, he said hi to him, so he's a cool guy. He said something
Well,
like
he
that.
almost felt bad because he was like, it was my rookie year and, this and that. But it's like, what is he going soft on quarterbacks? Like, once you hate a quarterback, you hate a quarterback, don't you?
Well, I mean, you would think, but you don't want to make enemies on the field. Like, I mean, a quarterback's a quarterback, and he was a rookie, and I mean, this beef goes back to college, right? When he kind of planted the flag and all that stuff. I mean,
bygones be bygones.
Yeah, you can let go of that. But I mean, he's Nick Bosa's kind of established himself in the NFL. I mean, he's one of the elite rushers. But you need to make any more enemies. Stuff you can put on the bulletin board, visiting teams, here's Nick Bosa talking stuff about the quarterback. But, I mean, that's a beef that's been going for a while, So, I mean, hopefully he can channel that energy to today. And Baker Mayfield's a quarterback that if you get after him a little bit, he can make some mistakes. Talk about gunslinger. I mean, he is a gunslinger. So he's gonna try to force a lot of things, throw guys open like that. But if you can get some pressure, especially that, pressure in the middle, Baker Mayfield will throw you some picks every once in a while.
Yeah, I think it was a different situation when Baker was in Cleveland, right? He was the number one pick. He was looking to be the guy. He's had to sort of not reinvent himself, but he's had to prove himself, and teams have taken chances on him. I've kind of turned my mentality on Baker Mayfield. I used to really not be a fan of his. I was like, I don't know, you can win with this guy. He did have that gunslinger and still does. Then he got off that plane last year and walked onto the field and won that game for the Rams. Remember that, John? That was an incredible performance last year. For him to do that, you got to have something in you. You got to be full of piss and vinegar to do that. I think he's a guy that can rally a locker room. And I think back to when he was a rookie on the Browns, and they were on Hard Knocks. He had Hugh Jackson as his head coach. Tyrod Taylor was the starting quarterback, and he was supposed to. I mean, it's funny. Tyrod keeps getting this job. Like, go be the placeholder for a minute while we let the new first-round rookie sit behind you for a month, and then he's going to take your job. Happened with Justin Herbert, and he didn't even Herbert wasn't even effectively ready to start until Tyrod Taylor had his lung punctured by an injection before the game, and minutes before Herbert stepped out of the field, and the rest is history. But anyway, he's the starting quarterback in Cleveland, Baker's rookie year, and they're on Hard Knocks. And I remember Baker, he bought that Winnebago, or he had a camper, and he was living in the parking lot of the Browns facility, and he still was not beating Tyrod Taylor to the field or to the training room or whatever it was. And at one point, Hugh Jackson sits him down and goes, hey, man, you got to learn what it means to be a starting quarterback. You have to figure out what it means to manage your time. And I remember thinking, a lot of guys probably go through this exact same thing, and a lot of guys don't figure it out or don't care to figure it out. I think Baker Mayfield has had to have – he's a guy who, even in his college career, played with a chip on his shoulder. I don't know that he was the best player in college when he won the Heisman. He made himself the number one overall pick, and I think has turned his career around to a point where I'm confident enough in him. He's got a little bit of like Jeff Garcia in him. You know what I mean? Like, he could be a number two for a lot of teams, and if they get in trouble, he can save that season or keep that season alive. This is right now, I know he's sort of a placeholder for them. They're 4-5 in a division that's winnable. He's a guy who you don't want to leave around or have him be close to you in a game like this, because he's got that lightning bolt in him where he can come out, he can fire something up, and he's got two big receivers. Mike Evans and him have a great chemistry and connection early in his tenure in Tampa Bay. This is a game where I think you want to put the pedal to the metal early and make sure you're suppressing that offense, because they go down in games and they can come back with like 2 or 3 big plays. It happens often.
Yeah, and he's a good quarterback. I mean, he's got a strong arm.
He's
He's one of, what do they say, sneaky good. I mean, he puts it together for some reason. I mean, the few games I've seen him play in, he's a guy who can make the throws. I mean, he's aggressive, and he's got a lot of confidence in him, right? I mean, I remember in college, I was surprised he won the Heisman Trophy. But, he didn't seem surprised at all.
He's a lightning rod. He really is.
He was like, hey, I'm the best player in college football. So he had a good career in Cleveland, and he's bounced around a little bit. But, he's a good quarterback. And if you let him stick around, like you said, Copes, I mean, he can win football games for you.
I'm a big believer in what the 49ers are doing. So I think it's what the 49ers do versus the other team. But as far as Baker is concerned, the best thing to ever happen to him is he's not the number 1 overall pick anymore.
Exactly.
He was in Cleveland. And so there's a certain expectation level to play at a certain level. There's a lot of teams in the league who he could start for and he'd be decent, but he's always replaceable. I think that's where he is in his career. His team is probably always looking to replace him. And the problem with Tampa, look, his numbers are good, 15 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. He hasn't made the mistakes that he's made in the past, maybe trying to force it.
64.5% completion.
It's not bad. It's just that Tampa Bay, again, just like last year, they can't run the football. They're second to last in the league in running the football at about 78 yards a game. They average 3.1 yards per carry. What they do is they have a big-time screen game. Hello? The only problem last week was in Jacksonville was their drive before the half where it was quick hitters, screens. You're going to see a million of those today because that's what they're going to try to do against the 49ers because they're not going to be able to run the football. They're going to try, but they're not going to succeed. And then it's going to go back to a short passing game, which is essentially what their running game is. And so for Baker Mayfield to have the numbers that he has with basically no running game whatsoever is pretty impressive. So he's solid. And as Dennis said, if he doesn't make mistakes and turn the ball over, they're probably going to stay in the game because they do have a lot of the same guys defensively. Now, they're not as good, but defensively, they have a lot of the guys that actually were in the Super Bowl. I mean, you're looking at guys like Shaq Barrett. You're looking at that linebacking crew still, and White is not what he was back in those days, but Levante
Devin White
is. Yeah, Devin White. And then Levante David's having a really good season. They got 2 really solid corners. Winfield's a nice safety. So they've got some pieces on the defensive end, but I think it's very similar to what happened last week against Jacksonville. And you can speak to this, Dennis. Playing behind versus playing ahead. If you're up 10-0, all of a sudden Baker Mayfield's got to have a different mindset than they're behind. They were behind consistently, and they did it to themselves. They got an interception from Ward against Minnesota, didn't cash it in. They got an interception from Fred Warner early against Cleveland. They didn't cash it in. So it's a matter of, and I think the reason why Kyle was so pissed, to just go back to Brock for a second, was that if that's an interception on that first possession instead of a touchdown, now they're scrapping again. And for the 2 of the last 3 games, they had opportunities to score, to get out ahead, and they didn't.
Right.
And it hurt them, and then the team stayed in the game. They got some confidence. It's the same thing against Tampa. Get ahead of these guys early. Don't give them a ton of confidence because they have a veteran defense. Baker Mayfield thinks he's in every game, even if he's not. Make them one-dimensional like you did Jacksonville, and they'll do that to themselves. But the big thing defensively today is going to be taking care of Tampa's screen game because that's how they run the ball.
Yeah, and I think back to the Minnesota game. Minnesota didn't run the ball very well, but they ran the ball very well against the 49ers. It became very balanced.
Cleveland.
Yeah, so it's you got to shut down that run first, and then you have to be able to get after the quarterback. But you got to get rid of the run game and make a team one dimensional. That's got to be the goal. To make them one-dimensional, and then you can get after the passer. That's got to be the game.
Well, and then tackling. I mean, if you're going to get into the secondary or past that line of defense at the D line, the dump off that they're Dre Greenlaw's going to have to wrap up. Fred Warner's going to have to wrap up, and that's something else that was not great in the 3-game losing streak was the tackling. Right, it just was messy.
Just one
sloppy.
possession last week.
Yeah, exactly. One time last week it happened, and then they forced the turnovers to sort of make up for that in last week's game. But if the screen game's going to be a factor there, and you're going to be pinning your ears back and trying to get to the quarterback, that's where the open field is going to be a place where you got to wrap up. Ambry Thomas big today. See what the secondary can do. But again, it all starts at the D-line. If you can create that pressure up front, it makes it a lot easier on the guys in the secondary. Rashad White, their leading runner, but as you said, they'll dump it off to him a little bit too.
Yeah, he that's what he does.
Baker's not turning it over a lot either. You said five interceptions, 15 touchdowns, 4 picks on the year. So he's
and that's what they do. See, they're just like the 49ers. They have the same plus. They're both +8 in the turnover differential. So they hang on to the ball. The reason they're 4 and 5, they're not overly talented, but they hang on to the ball. They don't make a ton of mistakes. Where the 49ers get the turnovers through interceptions, they get them through fumbles.
Yeah.
So that's what they're going to be doing. You got to watch on the offensive end. You keep hold of that football. And a guy like Christian McCaffrey, who already learned the lesson, or he knows it already, but he learned it early in a first possession game when they got the turnover against Minnesota. They got to hang on to the ball today because they're going to be swiping at it.
Yeah, they will come for the ball, look for the turnovers here. Christian McCaffrey hold on to the ball today too. See if we can get him into the end zone, right? How about Kyle Shanahan this week saying
got to start it all over again, right?
Kyle Shanahan saying George Kittle got a bunch of heat from everybody, as did Juszczyk for going into the end zone. He's like, God, that was even worse. Juszczyk. He's like, you could have just fallen down.
That's what Moose Johnson was saying during the game, and then we had him on this week. Is he's like, that's what you're a fullback.
That's what you
all
do.
the
Is you
glory
go
goes
down
to the running back. Like he caught the ball at the one, you got to go down.
That's
Hell
it.
with that.
He said,
I
George
would
Kittle,
never.
he's like, help your running back out, dude. You had like 66
chance.
yards. You couldn't have gone down at the one there. You walked in, bro. Come on. Let McCaffrey get that TD. So,
Dude, if I'm a fullback, I'm going in. If I'm a tight end, I'm going in. I don't see the ball enough.
how many
in this
receiving
offense, man.
touchdowns does Juszczyk get an opportunity for?
hell
Right? I
with
mean,
that.
over the middle, too. That's never happened.
I've never scored a touchdown, but it's got to be, an opportunity
going down
to
at the
score a
one.
touchdown.
Yeah.
It's got to be a great.
You ever have a good sack celebration, though, Dennis?
No. It was a different time though, because you remember Gastineau.
Yeah, for a while.
Right.
You
You couldn't
You
do
weren't
it.
allowed to do it.
You weren't
now-
allowed to do it.
now
So
you
it was
can.
you get a sack, you give a high five, you go back to the huddle. So it wasn't a big deal. But now, everybody's
The no
got
fun
their
league,
sack
right?
dance. The no fun
That's what
league.
they used to call it back then.
But now it's fun. It's all fun.
Now it's all
you
fun.
can do it
These
all
guys have
sorts of
elaborate.
stuff.
The play's still going, and guys are still doing their sack dances. I think it's.
Well, but the one that gets me is the first down. We got to celebrate it for you're down.
Especially if you're down like
It's like, bro, you're down 12. What are we doing?
Plus, it's like
It's a first down of your own 18. You're down 12. Can we pick it up and get
that's
it?
the problem. It's like
yeah.
I don't mind it if it's a close game or you're ahead or something like that. But a dude's down 20 doing the first down signal.
Yeah.
Like, really? Okay.
He picks it up. I love when they're in the hurry up, too. He'll do it quick. It's like, come on, what are we doing, bro? You don't have to get it in.
You get that TV time.
gotta get
You
that
get that
Quarter
TV
down,
time,
double
bro.
digits. You're doing the first down.
We're in the hurry up. Adam Copeland, Super Bowl champ, Dennis Brown, John Lund with you. 49ers general manager John Lynch joins the Murph and Matt show each and every week of the season. He did so this week. We'll hear what he had to say to them when we come on back. We are live at Levi Stadium. Niners and the Buccaneers, a 1:05 kickoff coming your way. We are streaming live on YouTube, Twitch, and on the KNBR app, as well as KNBR.com. When we come back, the general manager of the 49ers, Hall of Famer John Lynch, only here on the Sports Leader.
Outside of McKivitz, Ayuk is on that side. Purdy under center, a 5-step drop. Now going to pump and throw down the sideline. Kittle He's got it, and he's gone. Touchdown, San Francisco.
Keep feeding the beast.
Thanks for joining us. Getting ready for the 49ers in the box. John Lund, Adam Copeland, Super Bowl champion Dennis Brown. Let's talk with John Lynch. Well, you'll hear John Lynch. You're not actually going to talk with John Lynch. He joins Murph and Mac each Friday, which you can hear weekdays 6 to 10. John joined Murph and Mac, and he addressed the confidence level of the team after the dominating win in Jacksonville.
I think we played the way we're capable of playing. I was really proud of our team. We got in a rut that was hard to explain why we got into it. But I really credit the leadership. I credit Kyle, our players, for not allowing the funk to continue to get going and coming out with great energy. We talked a lot about let's not focus on the outcome. Let's focus on what we're putting on that silent tape. And I think we had a lot to be proud of with that silent tape, with the energy we played with the execution. And, it's cool when I think it should be noted, I still have a lot of respect for Jacksonville. I think they're a very well put together team, very talented team, and we went to their place. And so I think to do that in the fashion we did and to still feel like we left a lot out there, that's a good thing. And now we got to go replicate that. That's the big deal. Do it again this week.
No question. Let's back that up. And, John, obviously, things looked a little bit different on Sunday in Jacksonville. The five-man front comes to mind. And, then, of course, Chase Young. And I'd love to hear your thoughts, your impressions after watching Chase Young compete in a Niner uniform for the first time. What'd you see out there?
He made a difference. He really did. And I think he earned the opportunities by coming in to practice. And much like Christian last year, you just don't know how quickly a player is going to assimilate. I think those two positions, running back, defensive end, probably a little easier. Now, I would say, running back, the amount of different things we do with Christian make it very tough. But Chase, we had a good feel right away that he was going to be able to come in and really pick up on what we do. He picked up things very quickly, and I think he, testament to him, he went out there, he made his presence felt right away, and I think there were a lot of things that energized that guys. I think the distaste for having lost a few games in a row. I think having Trent and Debo back, that was a huge lift. I think Chase gave us a big lift as well. Steve Wilkes being on the sidelines. I mean, there were a lot of things that just kind of went our way, and but it's not just those things. I think collectively as a unit, we got back to who we were and the way we prepared and the way we went out and took care of business, and that's a good thing.
John Lynch talking to us before. His old team, Tampa Bay, comes back for the second straight year. Last year they came back, so we got to see the Bucs then. We get to see it again. Then it was Tom Brady. Brock Purdy beat him 35-7, but we'll get to that in just a little bit. John, circling back to what you said in everything that was good, I mean, we were kind of joking let's see. They added Trent Williams, Debo Samuel, and Chase Young. So I think they got better, right? That's kind of some simple way to look at it. But you mentioned Steve Wilkes on the sideline. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I mean, listen, Wilkes spoke yesterday, and he's like, that's not the reason why we played better. But just telling the visual on the TV, it looked kind of nice to see him hugging up Ambry Thomas or something like that. What was, for you, the observation of what Steve Wilkes on the sideline meant to the defense?
It just felt right. I mean, I think that's a process you have to go through. Unfortunately, when you have success, or fortunately, because you're thrilled for the D'Amico Ryans, for the Rand Carthons, all these people that we've lost, that people want a little piece of us, you got to replace it. And when you bring someone like Steve Wilkes in, there's going to be a little indoctrination period. It went smooth right away. We hit a little speed bump, and I think it's courageous of Kyle to be able to make a call like that and say, you know what, we're going to flip the script, and my instinct says he should be down there. And I think, like I said last week, it's what our players are accustomed to. Steve has tremendous energy. He has tremendous presence. For him to be down there amongst the players, I really and always have believed for everything you gain going upstairs, there is the connectivity to your players. And we've got players that can give great feedback. and it's a lot easier to do it in person and communicate between the groups. So I just thought it was awesome. It looked like he's having fun down there. And, part of this thing, sometimes we forget it should be fun. It's high stakes. There's a lot of pressure involved, but you got to have fun. And I think it was cool just to see him having fun down there with our players.
Yeah, I agree. The body language was good. Of course, when you're up 34-3, body language is always good, right? So it's kind of fun, man. We're talking to John Lynch. And then, of course, we can't review the game or move on from reviewing the game without talking about your quarterback. I mean, there were actually, there's some people in the chatterverse and the pumpkin turning into a carriage is turning into a pumpkin. That's the old cliche. Next thing you know, he's slicing and dicing, making that throw that Kyle likened to a grenade out of a bunker to Kittle. Also drawing a rebuke from his coach for that first touchdown. But everything was on display. The escapability and the winning football from Brock Purdy. I asked you about him last Friday. You said there's no crisis of confidence at all, and I guess he put the weight behind your words there.
Yeah, that's just the way we feel. So this isn't lip service. This isn't trying to pump confidence into someone. It's the way we feel, but he's earned that. He's made us feel that way. And, I think as we get towards this, this week of Thanksgiving, I'm very grateful for him. The last pick in the draft to turn into what he's turned into. And look, quarterback Tom Brady is the greatest illustration. We talked about him, going to Tampa, but you have to go do it each and every week, and that's why those guys get paid the big bucks. It's a tough position. You're scrutinized every week with when you have success or when you have failure, and Brock just handles it all really well. He can make the simple execution plays, the processing, but then you see that he's a real playmaker as well. I think that play to Kittle, that's one of the finest plays I've seen him make. I got a book up here where Bill Walsh talks about the art of quarterbacking. With chaos all around you, can you function? And that was a great illustration. I mean, the pocket was caving in. Our guys were fighting. He held on to try to get to his second read, and Kyle had a great description, like a grenade out of a bunker.
Yeah.
But that takes a lot of arm talent. That takes a lot of talent to do that, and I thought it was just a tremendous play. And but he does the simple things. He can also make some plays, and he's aggressive in doing so. And he's a fighter. So we're very grateful for him, and he knows we got to go do it again against another good team, and we're looking forward to that opportunity.
Yeah, he spoke to that a little bit yesterday in his media about looking back at the film of the Tampa Bay game last year when he made his first regular start and thumped Tom Brady. He said, wow, I was really playing with a chip on my shoulder. And you kind of just spoke to that when you said you got to do it every week like Tom Brady. This would be kind of a game, I would think, this Tampa Bay game, because Seattle's on the other side in Thanksgiving, and then Philadelphia is somewhere in our minds after that. So this is the kind where you have to earn your professional stripes, right? Because it's not a rivalry game. It's not a division game. You're coming off a huge win. Do you feel that? Is that kind of the theme that Brock has to – this is where Brock has to become a total pro and play that great in a game that doesn't have the same, buzz?
Well, I think the thing is, to us, it's not just Brock, it's everybody. We've all got to do that, and we have three reminders, with those three losses as to why. You have to go earn every win in this league. Tampa's a very good football team. Baker Mayfield, I think, found an offense that really highlights what he does well. He's playing as good a football as he has in a long, long time, if not in his career. We played him last year. I think Vita Vea went out early in the game. Winfield didn't play. Those are two difference makers. I'm sure they don't feel real good about what happened last year. So you got to go earn it. And, we understand that. We've got a lot of respect for this team coming in here. And Brock can certainly lead the way, but we all have to understand that we're going to have to play at a high level and execute at a high level to have the success that we want to have.
And Brock Purdy gets his chance to play against Baker Mayfield and the Bucs this Sunday when the Niners take on Tampa Bay. 1 o'clock Sunday at Levi's Stadium. Okay, so some practical stuff going into this game. Trent Williams appears to be healthy, they talked 75% last time. Are we still not all the way back? What's your prognostication for Trent Williams?
Well, I think having gone through it myself, sometimes when you go play in a game, he had a a significant, ankle injury that took some time to get back. And, playing that position, just watching what those guys do. I don't care if you're, as talented as Trent. You have to put your feet and cleats in the ground against big people, and that's tough. But sometimes if you can just get out there, play the game, you actually come out a little better. And that seems to have be the case with Trent. He practiced both days this week, Wednesday, Thursday. Looked good in doing so. So we feel really good about where Trent's at. And, it was tough playing without him. Jalen Moore did a really nice job, but Trent Williams is Trent Williams, and he even just provides confidence when he's out there. It's, every now and then when you need some of that, you just look at those dudes, and there's certain guys that, man, that guy's on our side. It gives you some confidence, and Trent's certainly one of those guys.
He talked about that. He said, little number 31 ran away from me. I've never seen that before.
Hey, that was, what can you say?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people that would have that same reaction. A couple of years ago in a player safety, they took away the right for the DBs in those situations to go low and cut the knees, because a lot of guys, that was the one way you could slow offensive linemen down, is they knew you had the right to go low. Now they can't go below the waist. And so, the league now has asked people like 31, God bless him, to take on people like Trent Williams, and that math doesn't work out. That physics doesn't work out. And when you get someone as athletic as Trent, it's on film. It's well documented what can happen. And so, not a good look for 31, but I can't say I blame him.
No, right. On the other side, the tackle Colton McKivitz, he came out and Kyle said after the game he got rolled up on, and I see he's been limited in practice. Can he play Sunday?
Yeah, he looks good. He's practiced. I'm sure he's hurt, and Colton's a tough dude, and it's going to take a lot to get him out of there. And so I think we were fortunate. He got rolled up in those piles that happen in there. And so I think we were fortunate that he came out like he did. And Colton is very tough, so he's practiced, and I think he should be good to go.
And then the other is you guys are playing without Aaron Banks. A guy who offensive guard is about almost as anonymous position as you can get on the field, but it's a big deal to you guys. John Feliciano, we know, is a veteran. He started in the NFL. So Banks still out, and what does that do to your guys' offense with Feliciano?
Banks has become a anchor kind of on that offensive line for us, and a player who I'm really proud of the way he's developed. He continually gets better. He's still out. I will say Feliciano, and he's a guy, when we lost Dan Brunskill last offseason, who was really just a steady in force, we needed to find something to kind of replicate that. And Danny was pretty unique in that he could play all 5 spots. John was unique in that he had started at both guard and center and had played at a high level. We went out and got him, and there's a little bit of with Feliciano. You've always heard he's one of these glue guys that in an offensive line room, that's a tight group, is always one of the leaders, and he's quickly worked his way towards that. But then there's just some gamer to John. He plays, he practices well, but man, he's a different player when the game starts, and he played very well the other day. And we're very fortunate to have a guy like that has been battle tested in our league, and I don't think you can say enough about the way he stepped up to that task. He's going to have a big task this week. I mentioned Vita Vea earlier. Cansey is a rookie. He's playing well for them. So they got some guys inside. He's going to have his work cut out for him, as we all will. But very grateful that we have John Feliciano, and he played tremendously and deserves a lot of credit for that.
There it is, the breakdown with John Lynch here. Last few minutes here before we get ready for the Tampa Bay Bucs. Is it still, after all these years, does Tampa Bay coming to town still move a small part of your soul?
That's a good question. Yeah.
I know a lot of people there. The Glazer family, their ownership, they're great people. They were great to me. Got to catch up with everybody from the Bucs this summer back in Canton when Rondé Barber, my former teammate, went in. So there's a lot of connections, but really it's the grind of the season, and it's about how do we, find a way to get another win. I would tell you it was a lot more difficult and like when I was playing in Denver, and I think my first year we went back to Tampa, and that was really emotional. It's doing this job. It's great to see people, but I don't try to make too much of it.
That, of course, is General Manager John Lynch of the 49ers, and you can hear him every single Friday with Murph and Mac right here on the Sports Leader. There he's talking at the end, of course, a Hall of Fame career with the Bucs. He's in the Bucs Ring of Honor, his 47. There you go. So there is John Lynch, but he's on the right side now. We'll get more into it as we get you ready for the 49ers and the Bucs. Top of the hour, we'll review last week, and we'll roll right into it as we get you ready for a big game down here at Levi's Stadium, only here on the Sports Leader.
When San Francisco was rolling like they were yesterday, or they were in Week 5 against Dallas, I don't know if there's a team in the NFL that can play with them. And that's Kansas City, that's Philadelphia. I mean, Philadelphia has not gotten back to the level they were at last year. That's why it was so disappointing when Brock got hurt in that game, because I thought that was going to be just, potentially one of the most epic NFC Championship games that we've had.
That was Moose Johnson. He was on KNBR earlier this week with you, wasn't he?
Yeah.
John Lund and Greg Papa.
And he has a call again today, and he had the call last week.
How about that? Good guy to have on. Good book in there, Walt.
Yes,
way to go,
job.
Walter. Low-hanging fruit, but
Blind squirrel nut.
It'll happen. Yeah, broken clock, all that business. Anyway, let's get into who's hot for today's game. Let's get into who's hot for today's game. Niners and the Bucs. By the way, Adam Copeland, Dennis Brown, and John Lund with you here at Levi's Stadium, and we are streaming live, by the way, Twitch. and YouTube and KNBR.com, as well as the KNBR app. We'll be on afterwards as well, giving you post-game thoughts and taking your calls and getting your reactions. Let's get to Who's Hot, sponsored by Valley Heating, Cooling, Electrical, and Solar, locally and family-owned for 61 years. Well, Dennis, you talked about last week. It was the defensive line for sure for you, and I think for a lot of us, that was the bigger concern over the 3-game losing streak. Who stands out to you in terms of who got hot last week, and who are you looking to stay hot?
Well, I mean, Nick Bosa got hot last week, right?
Boom.
Chase Young, though, I think is a guy that, I want to see get real hot. I mean, the way he plays, he's an aggressive player. We know he's a pass rusher, but he just flies around. And, he's young in his defense. He's still trying to figure it out. But I need him to get real hot. I need him to be able to apply that consistent pressure on the quarterback. But Nick Bosa hot. He got hot last week. I think those two are going to stay pretty hot.
I'll take the aforementioned low-hanging fruit. Brock Purdy, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. And, yep, the first one was questionable, but we talked about it, and we will continue to, is I like that he presses it a little bit. I know Kyle didn't like the throw, but it goes back to no turnovers. When this team doesn't beat itself, they're going to be really hard to beat. And I agree with you. The defensive line is back, but offensively, that throw to George Kittle, I don't know that it's being talked about enough. That was a muddy pocket. He had to pump once, pull it back, and he didn't even actually finish the motion on the throw. And he knew right away. Devin Lloyd, the linebacker, had his back turned to him against George Kittle. That's a mismatch every day, all day. And he hits him for the 66-yarder, and George walks in. It's a huge play because if you remember, they got a field goal, a 35-yard field goal by Jake Moody right before the half, and then they score that touchdown, and it's 20-3 at that point. If he doesn't make, again, we're talking about just 1 or 2 or 3 plays, and you look at a 34-3 game, and you say to yourself, well, it's a blowout. Well, if they don't make that play, then you're punting it back to Jacksonville, and who knows what they do. But you take a lead that is 10-3 at one point, and then you double up on them. And that's what Kyle Shanahan teams like to do. You get the field goal, you get the touchdown on a great throw from Brock Purdy, you score 10 and answered. Their offense never gets on the field. It's 20-3, and for all intents and purposes, the game's over.
And then with that, I was looking back at the replay of that play with George Kittle, and what a great job he did of getting the separation, right?
He did.
I mean, it was a great job. The ball was put right into the breadbasket, but he did a great job getting separation, getting to that ball.
Yep. Good. And again, you look at that play and you say it's easy, but that's not an easy throw, and that's a muddy pocket. And yeah, he was wide open, but again, it's Brock Purdy in his mind quickly deciphering, I got a linebacker on George Kittle, and I got a muddy pocket here, but I'm going to get it out. And when people say, Brock doesn't have arm strength, I don't think that's accurate at all. And I heard that, but we had Sean King on this week, who's really, really good. He's a former Bucs Super Bowl winning quarterback. He's with the Vegas Sports and Information Network. And for a guy who knows as much as he does about playing the position, anybody who says that Brock Purdy doesn't have the arm strength, he threw that without following through on a dime, and that's not an easy throw to make down the sidelines. He shows us all the time that his arm strength is more than adequate. I'm not going to say that he's, Justin Herbert or somebody like that or Patrick Mahomes, but it is more than adequate to do the things that he's doing, and he shows it every single week.
Yeah, I think so, and that's why we've seen him make some of those. I mean, even in the 3-game losing streak, how many times did we hear guys like Steve Young, he's come on our station, and even national evaluators saying that some of the throws, we heard Alex Smith say it a bunch, he said some of these throws he's making are really, really, really impressive, right? It's like he can make great throws, but if you throw that interception in the red zone or in the end zone at the end of a game, that's all anybody remembers. He had a game where he started 16-19. Was it the Vikings game? Was it the Vikings game where one of them he started real hot and then fell apart when he got to or it was the Bengals game here. He gets to the end of the third quarter, throws the interception. Fourth quarter, things just sort of fall apart. But he had played fairly well in the early parts of some of those games. I know the Cleveland one's a little bit different. It was a different situation, tougher defense. And we've seen that is, as we get further away from that Cleveland game, that defense is legit, man. That thing is really, really, really tough.
Even without Watson, who's out, they can still be a factor.
Anybody's going to score points today.
Yeah, they're tough
in that game. So
look, if he's
the
not,
arm strength is there. I'm with you.
If he's not turning the ball over, they got the running game going last week against Jacksonville. They can be very, very effective. And then back to what Dennis said, defensively, they get back to being who they are. This is going to be one of the top teams again in the AFC, and it's funny how things flip because a week ago we were having this conversation. It was a 10 a.m. start, so we were doing the pregame last week, and we were contemplating the fact that if they go to 5-4, what happens? All of a sudden now they're 6-3. Seattle's got to have a tough game against LA. Stafford's coming back, and their schedule after that's very difficult. So that's going to be a quick turnaround on Thursday that we're going to have for you on Thanksgiving, but. All of a sudden, it's 6-3. This is what Niner teams do under Kyle Shanahan over the last couple of years. They get hot, they get healthy, and they're as healthy as they've been all season long. So you got to get ready for the run.
Adam Copeland, Super Bowl champion, Dennis Brown, John Lund with you here from Levi's Stadium. A 105 kickoff coming your way. It's the Niners and the Buccaneers. Saw him here last year, but with a different quarterback. It was Tom Brady here with the Bucs, and that was the first start of Brock Purdy's career. They get back after it today, looking to make it 2 in a row after snapping the 3-game losing streak last week. We'll get into the big question when we come on back as we open things up here. Get you ready for the Niners and the Bucs. Week 11, 105 kick, only here on the Sports Leader.
Lawrence out of the shotgun. There's Chase Young from behind along with Bosa. And there are your Buckeyes together, forcing a fumble, and the 49ers have the ball. Young and Bosa arrive together at the same time on Trevor Lawrence.
The Buckeye Crunch.
Pour up a bowl of that and watch some cartoons. The Buckeye Crunch, Chase Young and Nick Bosa getting to the quarterback numerous times. The D-line sacking him 5 times last week. He got a whole bunch of sacks against Trevor Lawrence and the Jags in a 34-3 rout. And now we look to make it a Florida sweep today as the Niners get ready for the Buccaneers. Week 11, Adam Copeland, Super Bowl champion, Dennis Brown, John Lund with you. We are getting you ready for the Niners and the Bucs here. Niners have a short week after this. This is a crucial game here. Also tied with the Seahawks. You lose this game, you go into that game. If Seattle wins today, they're down in Los Angeles, by the way. Rams off of a bye. Seattle wins that game and the Niners lose. Niners are behind Seattle. If you go up there next week after both have the same result today, then you're both tied atop the NFC West. And that game is extremely crucial because you play them twice in 3 weeks, especially on the short week there. We'll get into some of the quarterback stuff here in just a minute, but coming off of the game last week, Dennis, when you're a defense and you put together a performance like that, especially when you're a team that has had that level of success like they had through the first 5 weeks. I mean, we made a lot of Steve Wilkes coming down to the sideline and leaving the booth, but they were 5-0 with him in the booth. Yeah. When you get back to doing what you did well early in the season, and I think last week they did some stuff better than they'd even done in terms of hitting the quarterback and creating pressure in those first 5 games. Is that sort of do you go, this is a familiar feeling, we can repeat this because now we've seen it again, we know that's in there? It's like in basketball, they say you want to see the ball go through the hoop.
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be. I mean, especially with this team, the talent level they have on this football team. In the first 5 weeks, the way they dominated opponent or football teams is that, you know you can do it. And you know what you got, defensive line, you know what you got in the room. I mean, the pressure's on you. You bring guys in like Randy Gregory and to help with the pass rush. You got young guys. Yeah. I mean, you know what you have in the room, and you know what you can do, and you've done it, right? I mean, you did it last season. You did it at the beginning of this season. And then you take a 3-week, whatever it was, they decided that, they were going to play the same kind of football. So you know what you can do. You understand what you can do. You just kind of have to go and execute. And that's what football's about, NFL's about. You have to execute. And players make plays. I don't think having your coordinator on the field matters. But if Fred Warner thinks so, so be it. But, you still got to make the plays. Coaches just make calls. You have to go out there and execute and make the plays. So I think last week we saw a lot of guys. I think, Nick Bosa. I mean, he's a guy that's, we've talked about the entire football season. He wasn't showing up, on anything on the charts.
He wasn't putting up numbers last week, sacks, fumble recovery,
and it wasn't because he was one-on-one. He was one-on-one.
He forced a pick at one point.
Yeah. So, I mean, you understand what you have to do, and you understand the pressure, and then you have to kind of get after people. But, when you have the talent level like they have on defense, I think secondary played a lot better last week. The pass rush helps out a lot. But when you have the talent like you have on that especially in a defensive line room, you know what you can do. You just got to put together and execute.
Yeah. And look, this is what the 49ers do. They're healthy so throughout 2020 when they had the injuries, but in 19, 21, 22, they're 9-2 in November. This is what Kyle's teams do. And I expect the same thing to happen. And we'll go through the rest of the league here a little bit later on in the pregame show. But this is the key points of the season for the 49ers, the Eagles, and the Seahawks. Now, the Lions, they may be there I'm not going to say by default they're a good team. I don't think they're a great team. I think they might be a year or two away, but their schedule is really, really easy.
Yeah.
They've got Chicago today at home. Justin Fields returns. And so you may find yourself in a situation, we focus so much on the Eagles and that game in a couple of weeks against the Eagles, but it could be a situation where the Lions just cruise because their schedule is what it is. Yeah. So, but the bottom line of the whole thing is the 49ers can only control what they can control. So winning this week against Tampa and then turning around against Seattle on Thursday and hitting the road and maybe having Trent Williams return the favor that Richard Sherman did years ago, eat a big old turkey leg on the 50. I mean, who's going to mess with Trent? So, I mean, that kind of a situation where if they turn around and they do these things, yeah, it's a disadvantage this week, but then they get 10 days to prepare for the Eagles.
Yeah.
And they've had so many situations this year where they've got a team coming off a bye, and that can
4 games straight. I think 3 or 4 teams or 4 games in a row.
That can dictate a team and how much they can prepare. So they take care of business. The downside is, you got to play short and you got to play on the road, but you only have to go up to Seattle. It's not that far of a jaunt. But if you can win these 2 games and then get that time to prepare for the Eagles and stay healthy, they put themselves in a great position.
Well, the other big storyline, I think, as we went into the bye week after the 3-game losing streak was, what's wrong with Brock Purdy? You're just talking about the arm strength. And I think, I want to say, my sort of taking the temperature of the fan base and how people were talking about it, it didn't seem like that was the major level of concern. Also, when you have, I don't want to say they don't have a great backup, but Sam Darnold is not a proven guy that can win in this league or has not proven to be capable of running an offense like this yet. I think I feel okay in short spurts if he's in there operating the offense, but Brock is doing more than we've seen any QB in this offense do. So you don't want him to leave the field, and when he's out there, I think he makes the team better. The bigger concern was the defense. So based on what he did last week, and let's talk about this as it relates to Baker Mayfield, time for the QB comparison, sponsored by Friedman's Appliance, proudly serving all of Northern California with a wide selection of luxury appliances. Visit them in Pleasant Hill to see the Friedman's difference, and by Dolce Vita Tequila, pure and simple. Last week for Brock Purdy, extremely efficient, did not turn the ball over, and really that's the winning recipe for the 49ers. 19 of 26, 296, 3 touchdowns, and a career-long 66-yard touchdown pass to George Kittle. We just talked about him. In our first hour, we did do a little bit on Baker Mayfield, who's been efficient in his own right this year. 15 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. He's thrown for over 2,000 yards. Dennis, when you look at these two guys and they're two stylistically very different in terms of how they play, but they sort of operate the offense in the same way. I think when plays break down, that's where Baker can really beat you.
Yeah, and we talk about Brock Purdy, and he's not the fastest guy in the world, but for some reason he does a good job when he's on the run too. I mean, when he rolls out or he gets pressure, he can see pressure coming. He'll roll out, he'll make a play because he's always got his eyes down the field. But I think back to the Cleveland game. I mean, he played well against Cleveland. I mean, he put the team in position to win that football game. It's just a kicker. Moody didn't make that winning field goal. So I think Minnesota could have been one of his off games. But he's making last week we saw he's making the tough throws. He's under pressure. He's getting the ball down the field. He's getting to his playmakers, which he has to do. He had Debo last week that helped out a lot. But I think overall, I think he's still kind of surprising people because people are still kind of at that 3 game. People are kind of on his back a little bit, and he showed a lot of confidence last week coming out and playing well because people were kind of down on him. But I think the things that folks talk about, his arm strength, he's not tall enough. All these things, he's overcome all that stuff, and he's proved a lot of people wrong. Because I think those last 3 games, teams were kind of shutting down the middle, thinking he couldn't throw to the side. He couldn't throw to the perimeter, and he did it. And he did it last week. So I think he continues to kind of surprise people. And I've been followed. Baker Mayfield is a guy. I mean, he's a vet. He's a first overall pick. I mean, he's a Heisman Trophy winner. I mean, he's a good quarterback. And if you let him stick around, and he has any type of running game, I mean, if he has any kind of balanced offense, he could hurt you. So if you get after him, shut down the run game like we've talked about, you can kind of get after Baker Mayfield.
I think Baker is just one of those guys that he's always going to be replaced, replaceable kind of guy, but he's got good numbers, and despite the fact that Tampa doesn't run the football, in fact, it's second worst in the league in 3.1 yards per carry, the main thing defensively for the 49ers, and they've struggled with it all season long, Tampa's screen game. That's one thing they do offensively that's very good. Rasheed White, their running back kid out of Arizona State, is not having a great year on the ground, but they throw a ton of screen passes. So the one thing last week that was a struggle against Jacksonville, and I don't know why they didn't go to it more, their possession right before the half, quick hitters, screen passes, missed tackles, those kind of things. It was Warner and Greenlaw and Anafungo, all missed tackles on that drive. They get a field goal out of it. That was really the only thing that you went, what's going on? They've got to focus on that against Tampa Bay because I don't think a one-dimensional Tampa Bay team can beat the 49ers unless they're going to turn it over a bunch of times. They've got to tackle well in the screen game, and they'll win this football game.
And the thing about the screen game is, offense is going to run screen and draws to slow down your pass rush, right? So, if you get behind and you have to throw the football and, you got your defensive line kind of teeing off, you're going to see a lot of runs, a lot of screens and a lot of draws. And up front, you just have to read that. I mean, you have to understand what the offensive lineman is trying to do to you. Get you to run upfield, you got to stop in your tracks and just run to the ball, and that's how you're going to defend a screen.
And to that point, Rashaad White, the running back out of ASU, you were talking about, John, 35 receptions on the year. He's third most on the team, behind Chris Godwin and Mike Evans, and he's right there. He's got more than Trey Palmer, their number 3 receiver, right? So they're running a lot of screen passes. You said only 132 attempts on the ground this year, so he's got almost 25% of his attempts on the ground in receptions.
That's their run game.
It's a third of it's a quarter of his run game, basically.
I mean, really, their offense is, and it's not a horrible offensive line, but their offense is screen game. And then what's amazing is Mike Evans has 71 targets, but he only has 43 receptions.
Right.
A lot of times what Baker will do is, I got a guy that's 6'5", 230. He's bigger and stronger and can go up higher than you. So I'm just going to chuck it up and see what he can do.
Chris Godwin, same thing. 68 targets, 44 catches.
So he's gonna throw it up, and he's gonna have confidence in his guys. And then Cade Otton is a kid out of Washington, the tight end.
Love it.
And he's good around the goal line. But generally offensively, and this is where, again, Tampa, if you give them some turnovers, they're one of 10 teams that are defensively giving up 20 or less points per game, which is amazing. Defenses this year are really putting it on them. They'll give up yards. They're in the 20s as far as giving up yards, but they tighten up in the red zone. So that's what they do defensively. And then offensively, they're a team that if they score 20, that's a good game for them. So again, you can keep them down. They'll keep you down because they have a good defense. They force a lot of turnovers. But as far as Baker is concerned, you've got to control his screen game because that's how they run the ball.
Control the screen game, and then he'll try to come over the top, as you said, with one big play. And he does it. It seems like every game I look up and there's Mike Evans making a huge catch down near the goal line or in the end zone or some acrobatic catch because, as you said, he's bigger and stronger than most of these guys, and Baker just throws it up to him and lets him go get it. Adam Copeland, Super Bowl champ, Dennis Brown, and John Lund, we are with you from Levi Stadium. We're going to see Baker again, but I guess it's all fun and games now. Baker and Nick Bosa, they're buddies now. Yeah, he said hi to me. So
that's disappointing.
Cool. I think he's just slow playing him, dude. I think he's trying to reel him in. Baker's like, oh, nice, we're boys.
Well, he was at the waste management on hole 16. Lots of people who hated each other are friends on that hole. That's the rowdiest hole in golf. It's fun. Yeah, you have a good time. You're like, hey, buddy, you know. And that's kind of what probably would happen there at waste management hole 16.
Yeah,
and
I mean, it's like Steve Young says Reggie White's on top of him. Yeah, he's saying, how's your dad? He's like, dude, get off me, bro. We can be friends, but don't be doing something on top of me.
You got a little, on a golf course, you got to do some marketing too. You know, you maybe get on the commercial with,
Yeah, maybe they are. Yeah, that's true. Because Baker used to do so many commercials. What was it, the insurance company was on the Browns or something? He'd break into the stadium.
Was he doing
No, that was his home. That's
where he lived there, yeah.
So, maybe Nick's like, who do you know, man? Because, I mean, Nick doesn't seem like the national kind of a guy, but he'd probably like the Bucs.
I don't know. He did that underwear commercial. Didn't he do
the Skims with
maybe
Kim
Baker's
Kardashian.
trying to get in the Skims.
Yeah. Marketing. You got to do a little networking.
That changed everything for him.
Baker, you want some Skims?
Is that the Kardashian underwear?
Yeah, it is.
Nice.
Yeah.
Adam Copeland, Dennis Brown, John Lund with you from Levi Stadium. We got plenty more coming your way. We'll get into our big question next. After the big win, silence, it sort of silenced doubters around the NFL, I think, is to whether or not the 49ers were still Super Bowl contenders. A 3-game losing streak ended with a bang. We'll see if they can continue it today. We'll talk more about their matchup today with the Buccaneers, the matchup last season against this team. A lot has changed, specifically at the quarterback spot, but still a dangerous team at 4-5 in a very soft, winnable division in the NFC South. More to come on KNBR 680, the sports leader.
I just think now they've found their identity finally. And I think that McAffrey, they're using him removed from the formation a little bit more. Of course, they got the big guy back now, too. That's obviously a big deal. And then defensively, they found their identity, and that energy is back on defense, and it's fun to see. I just think, this kind of had to happen, if you will. They had to go through that and have a week off and get knocked around a little bit and say, okay, buckle up, here we go,
As the voice of Mike Martz, talking about the 49ers and their identity, that they've refound it again after that victory. I don't know if they ever lost it. It's just that they when you have an identity, I think it's easier to get back to it because you know what you have to do well and you know why it is that it's out of whack. I mean, it was pretty clear that the return of Trent Williams and Deebo Samuel did wonders for the offense, and then the defense at the D-line started to click. I mean, it's tough also because you've added Chase Young. Did they just fix what went wrong, or did they add a huge piece? And we downplayed that it could be like the Christian McCaffrey acquisition or have that level of impact. I think it may very well have that level of impact. Adam Copeland, Dennis Brown, John Lem with you from Levi's Stadium. Niners and the Buccaneers coming your way at 105. How big was the impact of Chase Young last week, Dennis? Was it as simple as the change in the secondary? Were they just more aggressive? Or did Trevor Lawrence stand up and look across the line and was like, what is this guy doing standing straight up over the middle, getting ready to come at me?
And they didn't get a chance to run that play, did they? I think Hargrave jumped off sides, but that's got to be frightening when you look up and you got Nick Bosa and Chase Young, staring right at you. So I think it's a big boost because the type of player he is, and his ability to come into the game, and he's been playing football. It's not like he just came off the couch. I mean, he came in and he's running around. I'm sure he's still trying to learn the defense, but he's running around. He's going 100 miles an hour, and I think that's what the boost is. That he's you got this new guy on your team, on your defensive line trying to figure it out, but he's a playmaker, and he made a big difference. So I think it boosted defense because I think it made guys play better. I think it made Nick Bosa play better. I mean, you got your old teammate on the football field with you. Your NFC defensive player of the year. You don't have the numbers yet, and then he shows up. To help the pass rush when you are the pass rush. So I think it kind of boosted his game a little bit, gave him a little boost. These old Buckeyes.
Yeah.
What is it? Buckeye Crunch? Is that what it is? Is that what it's called? The Buckeye Crunch?
Yeah, that's what Tim termed it.
Excited about that, you guys.
First of all, it stinks because Joey Bosa just got carted off the field in Green Bay, and he was covering his face with a towel because he was crying. So
there's a lot of crying in football.
So that's not good.
That looked like it was a pretty serious injury. I don't know. Joey Bosa just carted off.
Yeah, we hope that Joey Bosa's okay. Speaking of Bosa's, but as far as Chase Young, I to be honest with you, when we've seen this a million times, I don't know why there was so much question with him coming over. Washington might be the most dysfunctional organization. I know that Josh Harris is their new owner now, but under Dan Snyder, they were completely dysfunctional, complete mess. And Chase Young, if anybody watched him at Ohio State, was one of the most dominant defenders of maybe the last 10 years. I mean, 16.5 sacks, 21.5 tackles for loss. He forced 7 fumbles his last year in Columbus. This guy is good. Had a knee injury, but the further you get away from that, the more effective you're going to be. And, look, it's no offense to Cleve Ferrell, who's more of an edge setter at this point. He's not a dynamic pass rusher. I don't know what the hell happened to Drake Jackson. He's out for the year, knee tendonitis. When that used to happen in the NBA, we'd always kind of go, really?
Elbow tendonitis in baseball. There was always that
but
one.
he never came around. He had those 3 sacks against Pittsburgh in game number 1. Then he just disappeared.
Yep.
We've been talking about this since Dee Ford got injured. Somebody opposite Nick Bosa is going to get singled covered. Now what do you do? Because we saw last week, Hargrave, you could double him. Armstead, you could double him. Chase Young is going to sit here and get singled, or it's going to be a tight end or something. He's going to take advantage of it. And where does that quarterback have to go? He has to go right into the lap of Nick Bosa. He has to move right, and that's where Nick got him. Chase Young got there first. Nick Bosa ripped it out. That's why Tim called it the old Buckeye Crunch. This is what they needed defensively, a boost some way, somehow. And all of a sudden, everybody else is playing better. And you've talked about this, Dennis, before, whether it's back in the day where the Niners got Fred Dean, or whether it was back when you were there and you guys got a huge boost, different kind of guys, veteran kind of players.
Right.
I think it boosts everybody up, and I think everybody played at a higher level. But this is the level I expect this defense to play at. And the good is okay, but this team is going to be led by its defense, and it has to be great. And last week it was.
Yeah, and they've played great before Chase Young came. I mean, I can remember when Richard Denton came and Ricky Jackson came. And, we knew we had to elevate our football game because it was guys who were in the room before they showed up. we were thinking, we're not getting the job done, and we got to pick up our game. I remember when Richard Dent came, it was like, we got to change it up. I mean, we got to start playing a whole lot better because Richard Dent plays at a different level. So you had to bring up our game. So that's what I think, last week you saw with Nick Bosa. I mean, I think he understands. We have this guy in here, and he knows what he can do. He played with him. He saw him in college. He played with him. He's seen him in the pros. So you got to up your game. When they bring somebody else into the room, they're telling you, you're not doing it. We got to find someone who can do it. So I think it gives the entire defense a boost.
Well, and it did, obviously, even statistically. Cleve Farrell gets a sack. You get a half a sack from Chase Young. You get a half a sack from Eric Armstead, sack and a half from Nick Bosa. Javon Hargrave gets a sack and a hack. Warner gets a pick. Hufanga gets a pick. That's all because of pressure up front. That's where that starts. Let's get into a little bit more of the health. As you just mentioned, the Joey Bosa. If you're just joining us, we were keeping an eye on games around the league. Joey Bosa just carted off in that Chargers and Packers game. They said it was a foot injury, questionable to return. He looked like he was crying with a towel over his face. Let's get to the health report for the 49ers and the Bucs today, sponsored by Danville Neuropathy Center, bringing your nerve pain to an end. We knew about the Nick Zakelj injury, right? We know about Aaron Banks is banged up. Where else are Trent Williams? I guess we're expecting him to play today. Deebo Samuel came out clean from last week. We will talk to Matt Mayoko coming up here at 10:30, our 49ers insider who is on hand here up in the broadcast booth, and we'll find out if there's anything else we need to know about. But in terms of health for the 49ers coming out of the game last week, in terms of big players, I think pretty good, right?
Yeah. Was there any injuries?
He didn't report anything initially, and then there were some more. There was a torn bicep, Zakelj. There was a couple things afterwards, but didn't seem that it was anything majorly detrimental to this week, which is key because of the short week following this one on Thursday.
Yeah, I just think you got to get out of this one healthy. And the Trent Williams thing is they're not going to sit him down because it's Tampa Bay. You can't take any game for granted. But if I could get Trent out of the game, if they could get off to a lead like they did last week, I'd like to, because I'd like to get him off that ankle in a short week against Seattle. But this is what they've done the last couple of years. They've gotten healthier, and that's just what you want to see. You want to see everybody stay healthy. You got a short week against Seattle, then you got 10 days before Philadelphia. So you set yourself up into a great spot if you can stay healthy.
Right.
That's the bottom line. And because, look, if anybody gets hurt in this game and anybody gets concussed in this game, they're probably not playing Thursday. You just don't have enough time to turn it around.
And by the way, the last time the Niners went up to Seattle, Brock Purdy was not healthy. Did not know he was going to play until later that week, right? Was that a Thursday night game last week?
It was.
The rain
in
Tampa
Seattle? Into Seattle on a short week.
Same exact situation. And Brock was way more hurt than we thought he was.
The ribs. Didn't practice all week.
I think they said the first time he threw was in the walkthrough in the ballroom in the hotel, right? Then he comes out and he played hell of a game. That was the first time of the season for the Niners that McAffrey had carried it over 20 times. But he was into his second start there. Last year, his first start as a 49er came against these Buccaneers. Niners QB Brock Purdy is going to do it again today. In that game last season, by the way, he went 16-21, 185, 2 touchdowns, and he beat Tom Brady. How about that? First career start. That was pretty cool. When we look back at his history of his first season versus Tom Brady's final, that's a pretty cool note there. Baker Mayfield on the season has played pretty good football to this point. You talked about their run game. Rashad White, big in the screen game. How about this? He's got the second most running back reception yards in the league behind Christian McCaffrey. McCaffrey at 339. Rashad White is at 326 because 35 receptions. They're using that as a big part of their run game. The big offensive strength for them, of course, Mike Evans, 737 receiving yards on 43 catches.
And the thing about him is they don't play him as a big slot. They keep him on the outside. And one of the things we haven't discussed yet defensively is Ambry Thomas on the outside last week was good, but I thought Jacksonville was slow to challenge him. That's not going to be Tampa Bay. We talked about this a little bit earlier. Baker Mayfield will throw it up and say, I trust Mike Evans, 71 targets, 43 catches. He will throw the ball up and give him a 50-50 ball, and I expect them to do that at Ambry Thomas today. Ambry Thomas, it's more about the mental side to the physical side. If he gets beat early in this game and Mike Evans gets a couple of plays on him, I get nervous because Isaiah Oliver only played 3 defensive snaps last week. Clearly, Christian Kirk in the slot changed their thought process. They moved Demo into the slot, and they moved Ambry outside. It's not going to be as big of a challenge in the slot. Palmer and Tompkins are their 2 guys that play in the slot. They want to go to the outside guys. Godwin used to play in the slot a lot. He doesn't anymore, so it's Godwin and Evans on the outside. Those are going to be the challenges. Ward has been holding a lot, and he's got a lot of penalties on one side, and the other side I expect
a lot of defensive holds on him.
A lot, and they got a couple of last week. Ward got one. Ambry got one in that game as well before he got that big fumble play, but they're going to test the outside corners for the 49ers today. There's no question about it. And can Ambry Thomas hold up? It's not that he didn't play well last week. He did. He just didn't get challenged a whole lot.
And Isaiah Oliver, I mean, he's a bigger guy. I mean, Evans is the kind of guy you would think that's what you would look at as a good matchup, right? Because he's a physical guy, and I think you have to be physical with Mike Evans, right? I mean, you got to redirect him at the line of scrimmage. You can't give him a cushion because he's going to kill you. So I think we'll see more of Isaiah Oliver this week because, he's more of a physical corner.
Well, let me give you one guy this is going to be interesting. Darrell Luter Jr. is a corner that the 49ers took late in the draft. He's been on the PUP list all season long. He got activated for this game. Now, how confident do I feel about a guy, a rookie that's just been activated?
Pretty good, yeah.
Yeah, not great.
Confident?
He's a 5th-round pick. And, look, he's out of South Alabama, so you're going to take a big jump to the NFL anyway. But they like him, and he's big, and he's physical, and he's fast, and they really like what he can do. But he was injured his last year in college. He's been injured to this point with the 49ers. Hey, young man, we're in the thick of this race. Go out and go against Mike Evans or Chris Godwin on the outside. I'm not saying it's going to happen. It's just that, yeah.
I'm hoping it does. I'm not.
You're hoping it doesn't, right?
If that's what it's come. I mean, I think the Niners are hoping it does.
But they like him. They like him. It's just that in this situation, you're starting your season against two pretty good receivers.
You can like him.
So I don't know that he's going to be featured or anything like that defensively. But he may be forced into action if Ambry struggles because, again, we can go back to Ambry. In L.A. to get that final interception against Matthew Stafford to put him in the playoffs, and John Lynch hugs him in the tunnel, and you're thinking, geez, Ambry's going to take off, a former 3rd-round pick out of Michigan.
Then he disappeared.
And it's just been up and down, in and out of the doghouse. And again, physically, he can run, he can do all the things you need, he's got good enough size. It's just that he loses confidence, and you know how it is. I mean, you're out on an island, and that's what they expect out of you. So he gets beat a couple of times, and then he just loses confidence. And so there is a bit of an insurance policy today, potentially, but you don't want to see him. You don't want to see a rookie hit the field at this point. If they're up big like they were last week, yeah, get him a few reps, but you don't want to have to.
We're talking multiple scores.
Yeah, you don't have to count on.
If they have to rely on him today, something's gone wrong probably in the secondary. Adam Copeland, Super Bowl champ, Dennis Brown, John Lund with you. Let's get more on the health and on this Buccaneers team and where the 49ers have gone throughout this week as they prepare for the Bucs and then turn right back around and have to play Thursday night up in Seattle on Thanksgiving. Matt Mayoko, our 49ers insider from NBC Sports Bay Area, joins us next only here on the Sports Leader.
I mean, honestly, I'm still learning with all this, my mindset and stuff throughout the season. It's a long season, but even like the 3 games where we lost, it's like sort of reminding myself of, dude, you got to play with that chip on your shoulder again and be hungry and prove to yourself that, every single game, you got to prove to yourself that you're supposed to be there. Looking back on the film and watching that Bucs game, it's like, man, I was playing like that. It's always good to go back and sort of just remind myself of that mentality.
How's the 49er quarterback, Brock Purdy? We were just talking about that as he gets ready to make his second career start against the Buccaneers. His first career start came against the Bucs last year, and it's crazy as we have Matt Mayoko join us here for the broadcast booth. Our 49ers insider from NBC Sports Bay Area joins us each and every week on the pregame show. Matt, like when we look back in history, regardless of how Brock Purdy's career plays out, that's a cool football moment. Like that's to me, that's sort of a baseball moment type thing where kid sort of gets to play against a baseball card. And you look at careers that get to connect and cross paths over decades and generations of pro sports. That's a really, really cool one considering the comps that were made last year to where Brock was drafted. Matt, how are you?
Yeah, I'm doing well, thank you. No, it definitely is. It's one of those things that once that game was over and you kind of, reflected on like, wow, what just happened?
Yeah.
And it would be like, okay, if he never makes another start in the NFL, that's a really cool story to be able to tell people. But, what he's done now, it's kind of like, yeah, of course he would have done that. Just the way he's played in whatever it's been, 17 starts now. So he's added to that, to make it something that maybe doesn't automatically come to mind when you think of Brock Purdy. Whereas, like I said, if he hadn't played as well as he has since then that's probably all we'd remember him by.
Oh man. Matthew, we were just talking about,
was that you groaning in the background?
Yeah, we're just
his
watching.
mic wasn't even on. It was coming through our microphones. He was like, he was like this, Matt.
I was just watching. I was watching Tyreek Hill just run through.
Oh, okay.
This guy is so dang fast.
Dennis,
oh my
I thought
God.
I made such a great point that you were just like, oh wow, that's
you
awesome,
did.
Matt.
You
That's
made a fantastic
incredible.
point. Fantastic.
But it's
point.
Tyreek Hill you're reacting.
He's watching TV above my head.
I know. I just, he's so. This Tyreek, he's so fast. I mean, how can a human be this dang fast? I mean, he just ran through the defense. Anyway, speaking of defense, we were just talking about this 49er defense, and first 5 weeks dominated. 3 weeks kind of disappeared, and then Chase Young comes, and you're back to the old 49er dominating defense. And we're just talking. Was it him? Nick Bosa shows up next week, or last week. Hargrave shows up. Armstead shows up. Is it just him coming in, a new body in the room, defensive line room, or is it just this defense figured it out again?
Okay, I'm going to give you two reasons, and then a third reason. But the third reason is the less of the three. The first one, I think the biggest impact, honestly, was the change at nickelback, because they tightened up their defense on the back end. I mean, how many times did you hear defensive linemen for the 49ers talk about, we really had no chance to get to the quarterback because he was getting rid of the ball quickly? I mean, this goes back to Matthew Stafford. It goes back to Kirk Cousins and Joe Burrow. And so the fact that Diamador Lenore slid inside and then Ambry Thomas did a job on the outside made Trevor Lawrence hold the ball a split second longer than he wanted to. So I think that was the first thing. The second thing was definitely Chase Young. And it wasn't, the stat line. Chase Young had half a sack. But the fact that you could see the Jaguars pay attention to him. I mean, it's been I don't know if there's been a game all year where the opposing offense paid any attention to the edge rusher opposite of Bosa. So the fact that they're using a back to chip on him means that they're not using that back to chip on Bosa. Then what happens? Bosa gets NFC Defensive Player of the Week. No coincidence. Also, Javon Hargrave has his best game. No coincidence. Eric Armstead played well. Everybody was productive because of the trickle down of those two moves. And then I know the 49ers really downplayed it. Kyle Shanahan downplayed it. Steve Wilks downplayed it. But Steve Wilks has been a guy known as someone with presence and someone that players respect and someone that they play hard for, and someone who just is, a really good coach and a top-notch individual. And to have him on the sideline, it's not quantifiable. We can't say, that's the reason they would have, the Jags would have scored 13 points instead of 3 without. I mean, there's no way you can put your finger on that. But I do think that it creates something that was familiar to the players, having their defensive coordinator on the sideline. I also think it provides more ownership to guys like Warner and Armstead and Tashawn Gibson on the back end. And remember, Steve Wilkes' background is with defensive backs. And if you're at practice, you see him working with defensive backs a lot. So to have him on the sideline where he can say something minor or major and also be accountable and available to those guys who are very smart defensive players to come over and say, hey, look, they're doing this. Well, maybe we should try this. I don't know. I think all 3 of those added up to a really good 49ers defensive effort, with those first 2, the things going on the field, having more of an impact, obviously, than Wilkes. But Wilkes' move from the box to the sideline had some impact as well.
Matt Mayoko joining us, our 49ers insider, NBC Sports Bay Area. Make sure that you're reading all this great stuff, following along, and the 49ers Talk podcast as well. Along those same lines, it was different last week, getting, obviously, with Christian Kirk in the slot. That's their main guy they wanted to stop in there, so Demo goes inside and Ambry Thomas goes outside. This week, it's different. It's the outside guys. It's Mike Evans. It's Chris Godwin on the outside. So how do you expect this to be different? Is it still going to be Ambry Thomas? Oliver only had 3 snaps, plus Darrell Luter Jr. now. It's kind of a tough time to get him in there, but he is healthy, ready to go. I know that they like him. So how do you see that working out today on the outside?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what they're going to do. That's a game plan thing that we aren't privy to. However, I just don't see them messing with what worked. I know that Steve Wilkes did talk about matchups, and it's a game of matchups. So, they have 2 different styles of nickel backs that they can turn to. But just coming off of last week, I don't see why you would want to mess that up at all. And I mean, the Buccaneers, their nickel backs or their slot receivers, Godwin's in there a little bit.
Maybe Palmer and Tompkins, right?
Palmer is in there. And so I just don't see a downside to sticking with what they did last week, giving Ambry Thomas more of a run, at outside, and then Diamador Lenore. I mean, he's only going to get better at that nickelback position the more he does it. And that's a tough ask, for a guy, especially a third-year guy like him, to be, to line up outside in base situations and then move inside and nickel downs. But I just don't see why they would want to do anything to mix that up after the success they had last week.
Talking to Matt Mayoko here, our 49ers insider, NBC Sports Bay Area. What's the status of Trent Williams? How's the ankle? What was the practice status of him this week? I know we update daily on KNBR, but when you were out there, what were you hearing? And a short week, I mean, that's the concern, I think, headed to Seattle. You want to get out of this one healthy.
He goes into this game fine.
Good deal.
He full week of practice for him. He always takes Wednesdays off.
Of course.
But full week. So, last week there was some question when the team, went to bed the night before, whether he'd be able to play. And then once it was determined he was going to play, everybody, I think, with the team kind of held their breath a little bit to see how he would be able to play and how he would come out of it. But he came out of it just fine. So there's only one injury of note, I guess we could say.
Yeah.
Aaron Banks will be out again with the toe injury. But John Feliciano, veteran, stepped in and has played very well. In fact, Feliciano will have a spot on this team as part of the regular offense, even when Banks comes back healthy. I think the plan is to have him kind of split time.
Okay, good. Yeah.
With at right guard with Spencer Burford, much the same way that Spencer Burford split time last year with Daniel Brunskill. But no, I think defensively they're full strength, offensively near full strength. So, going into this game, they're as in good a position physically as they've been in a very long time and maybe all season.
Hey, let me go back to Brock for just a second, because obviously, as we talked about, the Bucs was his first start. He came in against against Miami when Jimmy got hurt, trying to extend out and make that field goal closer. But what's so crazy to me, and I know we know this, but maybe an overlooked part of this is that game was on December 11th a year ago. They won 35-7. Brock 185 and 2 touchdowns. So we're not even a year to this. It's November 19th. A year ago at this time, we thought Brock Purdy might be able to be pretty good. I know that they liked him in the building. But even though this is his 17th start, we're less than a year into this thing that is Brock Purdy. So a year ago at this time, we really didn't know what he was. How amazing is it that in less than a year's time, he's become what he's become?
It's unprecedented. I mean, it really is. I mean, even if he were the number 1 pick in the draft, I think it would be impressive because very few guys play like this. I mean, he leads the league in passer rating, and the formula for passer rating are all the things that are important when it comes to the quarterback position and just accumulating the stats. He leads the league in yards per pass attempt. He still, even though he had that 3-game blip where he threw 5 interceptions in 10 quarters, he still is among the very lowest in the league at turning the ball over. And he just looks the part. And I think that people are still, anyone who's not giving him the credit is really like, maybe they're not watching.
I think they're stuck on draft status.
Well,
I don't know how long it's going to be until he can overcome that.
John, I think you're right.
Doesn't it seem like that?
Yeah, because I think even people who are harping on his arm, they're not watching.
Hey, Maddie, we had Sean King on this week.
I heard it,
he was talking about his arm strength, and I'm like, dude, you played the position. You're an analyst now. Are you not watching? I mean, even the throw last week to George Kittle, I think people thought that was an easy throw. It was a muddy pocket. He didn't even finish the motion, and he puts it out there perfect. I mean, I don't know what else the guy has to do to dispel this arm strength thing, because it's not an issue.
No, I think it's people who are being lazy, to be honest with you. People who aren't watching, and they're just like, he was the number 262 pick in the draft. Let's see, why was he the 262 pick? All because he's not as big as others and his arm strength. So therefore, they just kind of like, the arm strength. I guess you don't get attention unless you are a contrarian and you go against what everybody can see and tell. But I mean, show me one play where it's like, wow, his arm strength really cost him there. I mean, if you look at the stats, I think he ranks at the top of the league as far as passes completed and just passer rating,
yards per attempt,
20 yards,
20 plus yard throws,
20 plus yard throws. He's been nails, and so. I think it's just laziness. I think it's laziness and being a contrarian and trying to draw attention to yourself by just going against the grain. I mean, there's absolutely Papa and I were talking about this on the 49ers Talk podcast this week. Like, you cannot you can say...
I hear him enough. I don't know that I'm going to listen.
I know. Okay, so I won't do my
better listen
Papa
up.
voice.
Better listen up, Johnny.
In fact, I think I see him walking the field. He's probably listening to us. He just flipped me off from the field.
That was probably meant for me.
Next time John knows what I think of him.
But here's the thing. I mean, I guess it's fair or it's logical where you can say, I predict Brock Purdy will struggle at some point this season. Or, whatever. I predict that he won't do this. But there's no possible way you can criticize really anything about the way he has performed up to this point. Am I right?
Agreed.
I mean, you can make the prediction. You can take an undefeated team and say, I predict they're going to lose 2 games in early December. I mean, whatever. That's a prediction.
Yeah.
But there's no way you can criticize him for anything he has shown on the field because he's been he hasn't been perfect. Nobody has been. But he's been as good as any quarterback probably in the history of the game through, the full season, the equivalent of a full season worth of starts.
Well, and I know we got to run here, but the point is like you said, what amazes me is just how quickly he picked it up. And I know that Kyle has to do with it, and the people who make excuses and the talent around him. but everybody's like that. But, I mean, Peyton Manning, as great as he was, threw 26 interceptions as a rookie.
Yeah.
Andrew Luck was good, but he threw a bunch of interceptions. Like, it's not that a guy won't be good. And if you're a 7th-round pick and the 262nd pick, you don't have a lot of time to be good. Because if you're not right away, if you're a first-round pick or first overall pick, which another one that he's facing today in Baker Mayfield to add to Trevor Lawrence and Matthew Stafford, and it always seems like he's playing a number 1 overall guy, but you don't have a lot of time. If you're the number 1 overall pick or if you're a first-round pick, they're going to invest time and money in you. And if you screw up, okay, we're going to keep giving you chances. If you're 262, if you're not great right out of the gate, you're not going to get another chance. I mean, that's a hell of a lot of pressure.
You're absolutely right. I mean, we saw for the number 3 overall pick. I mean, he's personally responsible. Now that made it sound mean, but he's the man who's responsible for the 49ers saying, okay, we got to move on from Trey Lance. And that's a guy that, they pushed up the depth chart because they had to, because of where they drafted him. But then what Brock Purdy showed them was, oh, you know what? We can get the production of a player, we could get the production out of a guy that was chosen number 3 overall by a guy chosen 262. I mean, kind of going back to what I said, if the 49ers had picked Brock Purdy number 3 overall, for 3 months, people would have been just crushing him. But then once he started playing, people would be saying, oh, I get it now, right?
Yeah.
I mean, but he wasn't a first-round draft pick. He wasn't a 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, or 6th-round draft pick. He was the last pick in the draft. So when you asked that question, we've never seen anything like this before.
Matt Mayoko, but make sure you're reading him and listening to him and listening to that interview with Greg Papa on the 49ers Stock podcast.
I heard it.
You didn't hear it. Don't lie. I heard it though, Matt. I'm on the downloads. I make sure I help my guys out. You know what I mean? That's where the money's at. Make sure you subscribe to Matt too. You're putting out great behind the scenes content. I saw on is it on Threads you're putting out, Matt?
No, well, no. What is it? It's
because I saw you do some behind the scenes video of Shanahan walking in. You get some cool stuff out there.
I think that's Instagram. Yeah,
you get some good stuff. So Matt Mayoko, make sure you follow him at Mayoko NBC Sports, and we will see you on the field and in the broadcast booth, Matt.
Sounds good. All right, gentlemen, enjoy the day.
See you, brother. All right, Matt Mayoko does a great job for NBC Sports Bay Area, part of their pre- and post-game coverage, and all week long covering the 49ers. When we come on back, let's get into building the game plan. We'll get to the game plan next as Steve Wilks led this defense to their best performance of the season. Can they do it again against Baker Mayfield? We'll tell you about it next. We'll hear on the Sports Leader.
I don't think it's so much, and if one of you guys would indulge in doing the study, I'm sure you'll figure out it's no magical call with the screens. It's all about sometimes effort. You know, I said all the time, you just got to go whoop that in front of you. You know, you got to set the damn edge, and, you know, we got to get guys turning and running, getting out of the stack, you know, and, you know, it's just sometimes that simple.
That's the voice of 49ers defensive coordinator Steve Wilks. He's saying, look, man, I don't have some magic call for the defensive line, but they got out there, they got after it, and it helped the secondary. They had a big bounce-back week in the secondary despite the pass interference penalties. A couple of interceptions, one, of course, by Talanoa Hufanga, and then one by Fred Warner. But Charvarius Ward, Ambry Thomas looked pretty good. Demo Lenore had a tougher time, but Hufanga showed up big in the tackling, was down around the line of scrimmage a bunch as well. Secondary totaled 13 interceptions. They lead the NFL. 7 different players. Ward, 10 passes. Defense leads the team, 38 total. 4th and 9. Let's get into the game plan for today and how we build it. Building the game plan sponsored by Golden State. When you succeed, we succeed. Visit us at goldenstatelumber.com and by River Islands. It was for me. Come home
Dan is on it.
Attaboy, Dan. Come home to River Islands in Lathrop and discover the San Joaquin River lifestyle. It's lakes, parks, and schools. Wow. Start your tour today at riverislands.com. Building the game plan today. Just, John, where do you start with this one? We talked about defending the screen pass. I think the offense will click just fine. This defense is not elite for Tampa. It's older than it was when they won the Super Bowl. They were built for that run, and they had to invest, and now they're kind of trying to retool some things here. So Niners offense is not my key concern today. It's more about how you get after defending that screen game.
And this is one thing that we talked with Matt Mayoko is the outside receivers. It's a different Jacksonville. You wanted Christian Kirk under control, so what you did is you moved Demo Lenore and you move Ambry Thomas outside. This is an interesting one because the screen game is so good. As far as the nickelback guys, Isaiah Oliver is actually the better tackler. So he's like kind of like a linebacker.
Out of
so
the twist.
You might move him into the inside only because now maybe not right away. Ambry Thomas, as Matt Mayoko said, has probably earned that start. Move Demo inside, but if they're going to screen you to death, which Tampa Bay does, then you may move Isaiah Oliver into the slot because he's like having a linebacker on the field. And maybe if they're going to gash you with that screen game, then you move him in there. But then you'd have to take your chances outside. Maybe move Demo outside. And look, Demo's having a nice year, but Demo against Mike Evans, that's not good for the 49ers. That's just a size disadvantage.
That's going to be one of the key matchups to watch for today. All right, head coach Kyle Shanahan joins myself and Tom Tolbert each and every week of the football season, and we've got that interview for you coming up next. Then we'll get you the the 49er player spotlight. We've got the Steve Young show, and we've got our honorary captain stopping by in about 20 minutes. How about this? Foot. Joe Nedney is going to come on in. My guy, Foot. I'm a huge Nedney fan. I'm stoked about this. Joe Nedney going to join us in about 20 minutes here as the honorary captain. Kyle Shanahan next. Adam Copeland, Super Bowl champ, Dennis Brown, John Lund. It's Niners and the Bucks, Week 11 from Levi Stadium, and it's only here on the Sports Leader. Adam Copeland, Super Bowl champion, Dennis Brown, John Lund with you, getting you ready for the Niners and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Week 11, Brock Purdy. He made his first career start against them last year, and he sees him again today after the Niners snapped the losing streak out of the bye week. Kyle Shanahan, the head coach of the 49ers, all season long joins myself and Tom Tolbert, normally on Thursdays each week. He's going to be off this week for the short week for Thursday Night Football, of course, up in Seattle. But this week, Tom started the conversation by asking Kyle about the penalty the team got, and kind of led by him by walking onto the field during the Ambry Thomas non-touchdown celebration.
So I guess I got to ask you how much you fined yourself for prematurely stepping onto the playing field.
Not very much. And it was, oh, wait, how much did I fine myself?
Yeah, how much did you fine yourself?
It's funny. I have a little fine letter that was written to me earlier this year, and I deleted it. My name off of it and put Johnny Hollins in there, our linebacker coach, and took it to him yesterday in front of all the defensive coaches and made him freak out for about 5 minutes. But fortunately, we didn't get a fine, and I hope it doesn't come. But it, I still can't believe it. Everyone jumped out. We all thought the play was over.
Yeah.
I was ready to celebrate with the D linemen who were walking towards me. Then all of a sudden, they started running towards me, and then I realized what was happening and got the heck out of the way. But a little too late.
I said to Tom, I was like, you should have known that they were coming to celebrate, because defenders always run to the opposite end zone. They run away from you. Like when they're trying to go celebrate, they get away from you.
I blame Greenlaw because he was running at me and smiling and kind of like we were laughing and about to like cheer. And then all of a sudden, Ambry touched him in the back. He turned around, freaked out, and became the lead fullback. And he blocked two guys that allowed him to get into the end zone. But I was going off his cue.
Like I say, we can all laugh about it now. No one lost an eye. So it's all good.
Exactly.
Let me ask you about that first throw, the first touchdown throw that Purdy made. I know you said it was maybe one of the worst decisions he's made since he had been here. And, you know, when I watched it, I was like, ooh, there's a lot of people there. And then it got over, and obviously IU caught the ball. I came at it from this angle, though, and I don't know if it's, you know, you'll buy this or not, but at least he has the guts to throw that. Like, he has the guts to do that. Like, he believes in himself to do that. Like, I think the last thing you want, Steve Young always mentions it. He says that, like, inside the 20 to 20 is like numbers and this and that. He goes, but inside the 20, you got to be kind of an artist. You got to figure out ways to get the ball in the end zone, and you don't do that by being safe and checking it down. Sometimes you got to take some chances. That may have been too what was. It was too high risk. But I'd rather have somebody who's a little too high risk than a guy who is risk adverse.
Oh, there's no doubt about it. I want a guy who gives us a chance to win the game, not a guy who's just hoping everyone else wins it for him. That's where you want it to start. But you know, I am not worried at all about Brock not being that guy. Like, Brock makes plays, he lets it rip. He's done that since the first game he got in Miami halfway through, and he's done it every game since. So Brock, we have zero concerns about that. Brock sometimes, if we're down to stuff, he's not going to take what's given because he's going to do whatever he can to make plays to get us back in. So, like, he's everything you want in that aspect. But what's cool about Brock is he does see things. He has that poise. He can't talk to you when he comes to the sidelines, and he knows when it's a bad play too. Yeah. And that one, to me, wasn't as much of it's kind of there. It's like, what the hell are you doing that isn't there? Oh, my God, we are the luckiest people ever. And that's, to me, what was a little bit bothersome about it. But, you know, he doesn't have too many of those, but he makes a lot that are kind of there. And he doesn't sit there and think about it all. He doesn't hesitate. He will let it rip, and we expect that from him because he's so consistent with it. That one was just a little bit different, but like I said to him after I got all my words out of the way, I said, oh, and by the way, thank you very much for the touchdown. We love touchdowns. I mean, that's great. If I was a fan, I'd buy his jersey after the play. But you just know that's not going to last too long if you do too many of those, and he doesn't do too many.
Yeah, what was he trying to do? Because he said he was trying to fake him out by, you know, getting his head one way, or like trying to get the DBs to think he was going one way, and the wide receivers were supposed to pick up, or Ayuk and Kittle were supposed to pick up on it. They didn't pick up on it, so everybody ended up in the same area. And I think I thought he got lucky, Kyle, was the defender, I forgot who it was, that was between him and Kittle. He didn't really get a good jump off because he was with Kittle, so he couldn't get up as high as he would have liked to, I'm sure, and it just barely went over his fingertips. But what was he trying to do that didn't really come to fruition?
Well, we're supposed to disperse the field a little bit better than that on a keeper.
Yeah.
And both guys uncovered into the same spot. So both went to an off schedule before you were supposed to. And one guy was supposed to keep going, and then whether it was one guy, Kittle uncovering or BA uncovering, he was trying to get one guy to do it. And he tried to fake running towards the line of scrimmage, hoping they would all come up to get him.
Okay.
And then stop, assuming that one would uncover and be wide open. Well, they both uncovered and neither were open. And he just committed to it and made it happen, where it's first down. And when you get the edge on a bootleg like that and no one's there, the first thing you look to do is you run. And you get it because no one's coming up to stop him either. He just faked run.
Yeah.
He faked like he was going to do that, assuming everyone would come up, and then he thought he'd pop up and throw it to one person alone. There just happened to be two people there who were also covered, so he kind of got stuck in it. What he hoped happened didn't happen, and then he just said, screw it, I'm letting it go, and he ended up being right.
Yep.
Talking to 49ers head coach Kyle Shanahan on the Uma guest line. We do it every week throughout the football season. Chase Young makes his debut, and it's funny, I talked to Tim Ryan right before the game. He goes, bro, dude, he's so much bigger and faster than I thought. I saw him, I was like, yeah, dude, he's pretty big and pretty fast, man. Just watching that out there, I mean, Steve Wilkes at the sideline, everybody talked about that. I was excited to see Chase Young. There was a great change in the secondary, but I think we were all really excited to see the performance of the defense Sunday.
Yeah, they played. I mean, they played real well. I mean, just the intent of how they played was unbelievable. I thought the results were even better. Even when we did give some stuff up, they rallied and kept them out of the end zone, which is the biggest. And when you play that way, it doesn't always happen right away, but over the course of a whole game, to be able to get those 4 turnovers were huge. And when you do that, that's what allows you to win by more than 2 scores. And I was real happy with their whole preparation all week, just their mindset, and definitely the result.
On the 2 interceptions, I mean, I thought those were, and I know one of them was, but when you look at those 2, the Nick Bosa hit on Lawrence, and I think it was it Hargrave, maybe the other one, where they sort of forced the interception. That's the pressure that we've been looking for, been saying that has not been getting to the quarterback. I mean, it's sort of a domino effect with the secondary. I think they played great, but I say it starts at the D-line.
Yeah, I thought they both had their moments, and that's where I feel like we haven't done it quite together, and especially in those 3 games that we lost. When you look at those games, it was like, was it all the D-line? Was it all the 7 people behind them? And there were sometimes we had great coverage, and the quarterback got to sit there too long and get to a check down on his second or third hitch. There's sometimes we got there right away and hit a guy, but number 1 was open, and he was able to get rid of it. So all those things tie together, and I thought we had our fair share of doing both of them in that game. And you go to Chase Young and Bosa's sack that they got together, I mean, that was on a 3-man rush. And that's because of the quarterback, and it's hard to get to a quarterback on a 3-man rush, but when you got 8 guys in coverage, no one's open right away. And the guy gets to his 3rd hitch, and now we have 3 D linemen in there going against 5 O linemen, but 2 of our guys that beat him, he's starting to run, and not only did we get the sack, but we got the fumble with the turnover.
Take me through the Purdy throw to Kittle, because that was, just watching it on TV, it was amazing that he was able to hang in there as long as he did, knew he was going to take a hit, and then just put it right on Kittle's mitts. That was, I don't know how you saw it, and you break it down. You're going to see more than I see, but just watching it from the angle behind Purdy, and I was like, my goodness, like he did to wait, and then put it where he put it. That was pretty special.
Yeah, that was, I mean, I thought that was one of the best plays of the year, just all around, and starting with Brock. But, I mean, it started with B.A. Beating the corner off the line of scrimmage, and he broke over the middle and really killed the corner, which the safety had no choice but to drive on B.A. Because he was so open. And that's where Brock pulled it back once he saw that. And Kittle was number 2 going down the sidelines, but in order to do that, you got to hold on to it for a little bit. And they had a big bull rush from the outside there, and Colton did everything he could to buy about half a more second for Brock. And, sitting where I was on the sidelines, I looked back and I couldn't find Brock, and because he was stuck in that pocket and everyone was closing down on him. And Colton, I thought, had a huge play, just shoving a guy 1 more inch so he could fall in front of him. And Brock sat there and kept his cleats in the ground and lobbed it up out of, I'd say, it looked like a grenade coming out of a bunker from where I was.
Incredible.
And Kittle got right by his guy, and it was a perfect pass, and it was in the story after that.
Rarely see a guy actually walk into the end zone. I mean, like slow down and take a couple of steps. Like he was walking heel to toe into the end zone. Was George
talk about. That's why I blame him for McAffrey not getting the record. You know how easy it would have been for him to stop on the inch-yard line.
That or use check, one of the two. Like help your guy out. You know.
No, exactly. No, use checks was worse.
He's wide open. Dude, just laid down, bro. You're a fullback. You're used
Especially
to that,
because he was the guy that drive who reminded me. He was like, Kyle, remember Christian needs one more.
He's like, let me get mine first.
Totally.
Talking to Kyle Shanahan on the Uma Guest Line. Let me go back to that because we were talking here in the studio about 1994, where Jerry Rice is going for that single game yards receiving record against the Raiders, and your dad would have been the coordinator there. Do you remember that? They were like trying to get him the ball late. Is that a situation that matches up at all?
A little bit. Was that? Yeah, that was to get like.
I want to say it was like a single. Was it a single season yards or a single game yards record maybe? Or
I don't know. I remember the call. It was like Highway 101 belongs to Jerry Rice. Next exit Hall of Fame.
It was all-time touchdown.
I remember that was the call by the announcer on TV. I think it was a Monday night game,
That's
so
right.
I wasn't allowed to go to it because that's school the next day. But I remember watching it. And it was versus the Raiders, who my dad would do anything he could to run up a score or whatever on the Raiders with his history with them. But then Jerry had it, and they told him, I remember asking my dad, Seaford said, hey, Mike, you got one shot. So they put him out there at the end, and they just called one go route, and he got it. And I don't know if that was totally similar.
A little different,
I mean, that's just one play to do it, but and I think he would have got it the next game. Obviously, they just want to do it at home that time. This was a little different. I mean, this was a record that it happens over 18 games, and he did it over 17 games. And I would never would have put him back in there to go for like a yards thing or something like that. But man, when you got to do that over 18 games for that long, I mean that takes a long time to build up. It's only been done once, and I sat there and thought about the risk reward the whole time, and I was actually counting in my head. I was estimating, I'm like, all right, he's had over 200 touches. He's gotten hurt one time this year, and it was when he wasn't touching the ball. So he's gone 200 times without it getting hurt. If I give it to him 4 more times, what's the percentages of him getting hurt on one of those 4 plays versus the percentages of him and the rest of the team never talking to me again if I don't give him the opportunity. And once I did kind of that math, I felt good about it. I had to roll the dice, and I wish we scored, but I was glad that he got out healthy.
Hey, nice exhale.
Yeah.
That's good.
Well, it's interesting because I talked about it, and obviously as a fan, I've talked about like certain records, and I just said I'm not a big fan of going for records when they don't come in the flow of the game. It just seems unnatural. But you're the coach, and you gotta be around these guys, and if they all want him to get it, it's a different dynamic, isn't it? Because if you're not involved in it, it's easy to sit here and say, if it's not in the flow of the game, it doesn't mean as much. But then again, I'm not around all those guys all year.
No, in the flow of the game, no one will mention it to me because I will snap at them. I always talk about karma and like the intentions of how you're doing stuff. And once you start to think the wrong way, whether you're just trying to pad someone's stats, whether you're trying to just do something to be cool or whatever it is, I always feel like that's why you're going to lose. And if it's not then, it's going to come back to get you the next week. So I am a big thing on that. No, we do what we do. If the game's out of hand, you can tell me whatever after that, which doesn't happen much, but it kind of worked out that way with that fourth quarter. And once that was the case, we wanted to get everyone out, but we knew if we got close, we were going to put Christian in and give him a chance.
Got it. Hey, before I let you go real quick, you couldn't go to the Monday night game. Mom's decision or dad's decision?
Ooh.
Mom's. And
dang.
And now that I'm older, I think it had to do more with they just wanted a break for me. I think that's it because my dad's working. My mom probably wanted to have more fun and not have the kids around. Because I catch my wife doing that sometimes now. I'm like, they can come. She's like, I've been with them all week. I need one break.
That makes sense. That tracks for all parents. Absolutely. Hey, we always appreciate the time. Congrats on the win. Best of luck against the Bucs, and we'll talk to you next week, Coach.
All right, guys. Thanks.
Thanks, man.
Have a good one.
Great stuff there from Kyle Shanahan. Again, he joins myself and Tom Tolbert every Thursday of the football season. He will be off this week. He won't be off in general. He'll be off from us this week because he'll be getting ready for the Seattle Seahawks, Niners, and the Buccaneers coming up at 1:05. And we still got plenty more to get to here. Our honorary captain, Joe Nedney, is going to join us. Foot, they called him. Nedney's going to join us in studio here in just a few minutes after we get you the player to bank on, sponsored by Casino Matrix. Just drop in for gaming, dining, sports. Please gamble responsibly. 1-800-GAMBLER and by 5 Star Bank. Learn more at 5starbank.com. Player to bank on. Why don't we go back to that defensive line? And this may be an obvious one. I'm going to go to Nick Bosa, who had a huge game last week, and again, sort of made his debut as a defensive stalwart in the NFL against Baker Mayfield on Monday Night Football back in 2019. He sees him again today, a guy he's been hitting since college. We'll see what Nick Bosa can do after a brilliant defensive performance, sacks, forced fumbles, and a hit that led to an interception last week. All right, let's get into the kicking game with Joe Nedney. He joins us in studio as our honorary captain. We'll do that next, only here on the Sports Leader.
I love what he's done. I support all young quarterbacks. I know how hard it is to find success in that league. But if you're honest, when you evaluate, and the truth doesn't have emotions, he does not have a A-plus arm. He really struggles to drive the ball with velocity down the field. His decision-making can be very suspect at times, and he kind of got away with it that first stretch of starts. A lot of balls that were just batted down, but lately they've started to be intercepted, and some of those fumbles that happened last year are getting recovered by the other team. You're kind of seeing a propensity to turn the ball over. So hopefully he proves me wrong. I just asked the question.
Sean King, quarterback on the Super Bowl winning champion Bucs in 2003. He played the position I did not, but
who's he speaking of?
He's talking about Brock Purdy, and
really?
I just all due respect to him playing the game, and he's an analyst for VSiN Vegas Sports and Information Network. All due respect to him. You don't have to have a Mahomes or Herbert arm in this league. Brock, the propensity to turn it over, I get it. You watch those 3 games.
He was harsh on him, right?
But I would say
he was kind of beating him up.
Yeah, he's been pretty good. He's been pretty good.
Him up
So I don't know that I agree with any of that. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls of all ages, we have our honorary captain here, and he's one of our favorite guys. And we only usually call him when Jake Moody is struggling, but Jake Moody's not struggling at all, and so we have Joe Nedney.
So what are you doing here, man?
We promised you, Papa and I promised you that we would bring you on when he wasn't struggling, so here you are.
Here I am. That's funny. You have me on before the game starts, so we're safe, right?
Yeah.
This is good.
Okay, and your wife is in there, and she's the one, because the last time we had you on, she had a bet with you that you lost because she knew that we were gonna call you, and you're like, "Oh, they're gonna call me." And then minutes later, ding! Hey, can you come on the show and talk about the bad kicker? So,
no, that's okay.
Yeah.
Not a bad kicker, just a young kicker.
Yeah,
right?
exactly, young kicker.
Yes. By the way, Dennis, wait, hold on, Dennis. So we were driving into the game, and there was a little segment you were talking about, and it was the game winner that was missed by Moody a few weeks back, and you referred to Jake as the kicker. You didn't even drop the name, and that's so typical of a D lineman. Like
well, I mean,
you got to earn your respect.
He is the kicker. I mean, that is by definition, he is the kicker.
Yep.
And I'm not sure if I even know his name, but
that's the thing. I had a D lineman come up to me and go, "I'm going to call you kicker until you earn your name, and then I might call you by your first name."
Heard my name, I'm in the league.
Yeah. Right. No. Even that's not good enough
you
either.
You guys are unique though, because you would practice. You had your little meetings. And then you had to practice
at your little meeting.
Wow.
And then
it's a disrespect.
Unbelievable.
Wait, man.
Then you would leave the field. We wouldn't see you for the rest of the. We're in there banging heads, and you guys were off playing golf. So you had your own deal.
I have
going.
no comeback.
It's not a bad game.
It's not a bad game. Yeah, it really was. I mean, nobody wants my job when there's 2 seconds left on the clock.
Yes,
and you're down by 2.
Yes.
But
yeah. And as a defensive line, all we know is he's a kicker. The ball's not moving. The goalpost is not moving. That's because we're simple-minded. Just put it right through it.
You got one job, man.
Yeah,
one
you got one job. Wow. And you said something that you said he's not a bad kicker. He's a young kicker.
Yeah.
Just kind of talk about that. What does that mean? Someone who's just watching a football game. He's not a bad kicker. I mean, he was a third pick. I mean, he was a third round pick. So he's a good kicker.
Yeah.
He's just a young kicker. What are the differences?
I don't know. When I looked at it, it's funny you get reflective on your own career when you see somebody like Jake Moody. I mean, he was a draft pick, right? So there's instant expectations. Went to Michigan, had a lot of good reputation coming out of college, which puts a lot of undue expectations on you as a pro. Because as far as I'm concerned, your slate gets wiped clean no matter where you played. As soon as you become a professional, especially in a place kicking position, it's you got to build your stats back from ground zero. So with him being the draft pick, a very small sample pool that we've got so far. And unfortunately for him, there have been a couple of pivotal kicks that have been missed, and everybody's eyes are wide open because we had Robbie Gould for so long. You had this stability in the place kicking position. So the only thing with Jake, unfortunately, is he's just young. He hasn't been around a long time, and you got a lot of people with wide open eyes wondering how he's doing. So everything's going to get scrutinized and magnified and all that. And I don't know. As far as the way he's come so far, I mean, he's here. We're not talking about it as some kind of weak link or anything like that. He's going through his struggles and his ups and downs as any young rookie place kicker should. So that's what I look at. It's just a smaller sample pool. He's an NFL kicker. He's a professional. He's got the skill set.
Right.
And life experience on that field is going to get him the mindset too.
I was thinking about, Joe, the like they talk, secondary, you got to have short-term memory. I always wonder the honesty you have to have with a coach. Because like in baseball, a guy can come out and he wants to look in your eyes on the mound and say, okay, cool, I know he's good for 1 or 2 more hitters. And it may not kill you if he walks a guy or he gives up a solo home run. But if a kicker says, I can hit from 55 today or something, you better be right. Or you better have the distance, right?
Exactly. And that whole thing, I can remember doing that. You want that opportunity and you want to be able to look your coach in the eye and go, hey, put me out there. I got this. And at the same time, you're going, well, I better make it then.
So you asked for it.
Back this up, because if I say I got this and I go out there and miss it, I'm going to come off the sideline. He's going to stare at me and go, you told me you had this. So,
yeah.
So you and look, you got to put yourself out there. You've got to have that look. And at the same time, if it doesn't go right, the look had better be, I know exactly what I did wrong. I'm not happy about it, and it ain't going to happen again. Right. And you can see that. And sometimes I think early on that was maybe a misread with Moody is you can't quite see what the expression is that kid has. Good, bad, up, down. He's just kind of out there. And so you want to see a little more of that, I think.
Joe Nedney, great enough to join us. We're in studios to get ready for the Bucs and the 49ers. He's the honorary captain today. The amount of pressure, too, because it seems to me, we were just talking about quarterbacks, and Brock Purdy's picked 262. So when he came aboard and he played Tampa for his first start, it's like, you better be good right away. And first-round picks get lots of opportunities. It seems to me that it's almost the opposite for the kicker, that you better be good right away. And if you're not, we got to get rid of you quickly. The lifespan of a kicker on one team, as you well know, probably isn't very long, because if the mental starts and you start missing extra points, right away, the media, especially today, the social media starts going, uh-oh, there's a problem. He missed 2 extra points. He missed a game winner. All of a sudden, when we called you, it was like, Joe, what's going on here? Because there's a mental side of this. There's all these things. If you miss 2 or 3 extra points and a game-winning field goal, people start on social media, well, we got to bring Robbie Gould back. Like, you don't have a long fuse here if you're a kicker.
No, you got a million different psychiatrists and psychologists that can figure you out, and don't know what's going on, underneath all that. You're a duck on the water. How fast are those, those feet paddling underneath? And, all those, it's just a learning curve kind of thing, but you're right. I think in a position like a specialist punter, place kicker, it seems we make it look really, really easy, and we make it look automatic, and that's a tribute to the specialists out there. But when something doesn't go right, and there's no explanation except for he just missed it, or he just pulled it, or something like that's unsettling. If a receiver just kind of ends up with the drops, and you can't help them, and you don't understand, it just keeps happening. That's one of those frustrating things. So, but it just seems to be more magnified with a place kicker, because we get one play and then we get to sit and think about it for 20, 30 minutes before we go out on the field again for another single play.
Yeah, so. And we spent a lot of time in the show now. We found out that John Lund loves kickers.
Yeah.
Jake Moody.
It's just, I didn't think they should take one in the 3rd round, but hey, it happens.
Yeah, do we have Danny? Can we dig that audio up for Joe?
Joe's gonna hit me in the face.
No, hey, I got PTSD, man. I was with the Raiders, and they drafted Sebastian Janikowski in the 1st round. All right, so you want to talk to me about drafting kickers?
Where were you? Where were you when that happened, and how'd you hear about
it? Seriously?
Yeah, seriously.
I was in Italy. And
my job's safe.
I was vacationing in Europe, and had brought footballs with me, and was going out to parks and training and everything. Was going through the offseason program with the Raiders at the time, and the Raiders had the 15th pick in the first round, and nobody takes a kicker. Now you knew Janikowski was this anomaly coming out of Florida State, but I'm battling Michael Husted for the place kicking job for the Oakland Raiders. That's what my thought is going into to year 2000, and I call my parents. It's 5, 6 o'clock in Italy, or maybe 8 o'clock Italy time or something like that, and just checking with parents, mom, dad, on a Saturday night. How you doing? Having dinner, and there's quiet. And I knew it. I just knew it. I went. The Raiders drafted Janikowski, didn't they?
You're damn right.
My mom goes, I'm so sorry, and it screwed my entire European vacation. Man, it was
never
terrible.
heard that story.
Well, first of all, we got a kicker taking European vacations.
What do you know? You're taking shots, Dennis. I was working.
It's a very first world off-season trip. I understand that, but
here's my question. I mean, we talk about kickers and the pressure of being a kicker. Help me understand. Is it a different pressure, like the Cleveland game, to win a football game than just any other kick? I mean, can you? Can you feel it? You can feel it.
Okay. Man, walking out onto that leave that sideline threshold, and you're jogging out there. In my mind, every single time I'm going, okay, here we go.
Right.
Game winner.
Game winner.
You're up for that 3-point shot. As you're a kid, here it is to win the game.
Right.
And then when they ice you, what does that feel like?
To me, it was one of those things where it's just part of the moment. Soak it in. Like I just stare at the uprights, try not to overthink it, and go down and do the thing.
It's a different world. It's a different world.
Keep it simple. It's fun, man. You just missed out, Dennis.
Well, Joe Nedney, the voice you hear, and
I respect the hell out of Joe.
So do I, man. One of my favorites.
This disrespect in this room, man. I can't.
Don't bring up O-line. You think this is bad?
Bring some normalcy to the position here, all right?
It's awesome.
Joe Nedney with us, the honorary captain today. Niners and the Bucs coming your way at 105. Thanks for coming by, man. Really
it's
appreciate
my pleasure. Always good to see all you
guys.
guys.
Nice that it's all laughs.
The seat, right?
Yes, I did. Yeah. Way back when. First year.
Dude, look,
didn't look much different.
Well, at least it wasn't Janikowski. You know what I mean? Could have been.
They seem to have got. There used to be fans that would come up and just bang on the glass. And, you're trying to do the radio show, and you're like, "Hi, yes, thank you."
It happens with kickers, not D linemen, dude. We're not lifting you guys off the field.
Kind of love,
We're not lifting you off the field. Joe, thanks so much, man.
My pleasure.
See you later. When we come on back, we get to the 49er Player Spotlight, the Steve Young Show, and our conversation with Greg Papa. That's all coming your way next. Niners and the Bucs, only here on KNBR 104.5 and 680, the sports leader. Washington 24. DeVito fires, looking for Barkley. End zone. He's got it. Touchdown. There you go. Tommy DeVito, a touchdown pass there. As by the way, it is getting chippy in that Washington and New York Giants game as Sam Howell just rushed for a touchdown. We'll give you a few scores here from around the NFL as we're getting you ready for Week 11 Niners and the Buccaneers from Levi Stadium. A 1:05 kickoff as the Niners look to make it 2 in a row and move to 7-3. Looks like, by the way, they wiped that Sam Howell touchdown off the board and they have pulled it back now. So 14-9 in favor of the New York Giants. And we will give you some other scores and updates from around the league because there is some big injury news as a lot of these guys are questionable to return, but some superstar injuries. We'll start here with Joey Bosa. We told you about this one earlier. He was seen carted off. They called it a foot injury, labeled him questionable to return, but he was crying, had a towel on his face, and a lot of times, I mean, these guys know their bodies extraordinarily well. And when they're saying foot injury and a guy is crying like that, the concern usually is something as John and I were just saying around an Achilles because we just don't know he's down holding that part of his body. They will do give us the update. But when he was that emotional, he may be done for the year. Another injury here, Devon Achane just returned to the Miami Dolphins today. He's left the game with a knee injury, and they're saying he's questionable to return. Tyreek Hill was seen walking off the field towards the tunnel with a trainer. Did not have his helmet. It's his wrist, they're saying, though, for Tyreek Hill. He was holding his wrist. They took his helmet, of course, but he was walking back to the locker room. And then Packers running back Aaron Jones. I didn't see what the injury was, Tim. Did you see what he hurt? He hurt his knee as well. So Aaron Jones left the game for the Packers in that game against the Chargers. Just an update here on what's going on across the NFL in Week 11. And we're keeping a close eye, by the way, on that Lions and Bears game that is at the half. John, you pointed it out. Lions just came back to score. It was 10-7 in favor of the Bears. Lions scored just before the half. That's a big game as it relates to the number one seed in the NFC and how it could help the 49ers because the Lions with the soft schedule have the easiest road as it stands right now to the number one seed.
Yeah, by far. They've got a game at Dallas, which is going to be key, but the rest of their schedule is basically in division. So you're talking about the Bears, the Packers, the Vikings with the injury at quarterback, and they're 7-2. So the Bears got off early on this one, led 7-zip. Justin Fields going down the field, but now it's 14-10 Lions. They scored right before the half. But if the Bears in Detroit can stay in that one, that's a huge game. Other games that matter in the NFC, Dallas is dominating Carolina 17-3. That's one that would 49ers fans would keep their eye on as well. So a couple of games going on as far as what the 49ers fans think. The later one, Seattle at the Rams. Seattle always struggles in L.A., and you get Matthew Stafford back. So that's one to watch during the 49ers game.
The rest of the scores around the NFL right now before we take a quick break here. Dallas 17-3 over Carolina at halftime. Pittsburgh is trailing Cleveland 10-0 at the half. Arizona trails Houston 21-10 after a huge touchdown throw from C.J. Stroud to Tank Dell. He's got 120 yards on 6 catches in the first half. Tennessee trails Jacksonville 13-0 at the half. Miami leads the Raiders by 1 at halftime, 14-13. A huge touchdown pass from AOC, Aiden O'Connell, to Devontae Adams, a nice touchdown grab. As I said, Detroit is just ready to open the third quarter here against Chicago in Detroit. 14-10 for the Lions, 10-10 Chargers and the Packers at the half in Green Bay, and the Giants lead Washington 14-9 at halftime. Later this afternoon, of course, Niners and the Bucks, 105 at 125. You get the Jets and the Buffalo Bills, and another NFC West matchup, Seattle and the Rams. The Rams off of a bye. That would be a big win for them and the Sunday Night Football tilt. Minnesota's at Denver. Justin Jefferson has not been activated from IR. So Denver, 4-5, by the way. That's an interesting game tonight. And then the big one Monday night, Philadelphia at Kansas City. That's one, of course, Niner fans should be rooting for the Kansas City Chiefs in to help them out with their hopes in getting a number one seed. When we come on back, we will get you the 49er Player Spotlight, the Steve Young Show, and also we'll talk to our guy Greg Papa ahead of the kickoff. Well, we'll throw it over to them at 12:05, but ahead of kickoff, we'll talk to Greg coming your way at 1:05. Adam Copeland, Dennis Brown, John Lunt from Levi Stadium, Niners and the Bucks, only here on the Sports Leader. Adam Copeland back here with your 49er player spotlight. Week 11 for the Niners and the Buccaneers, and the Niner defense came back strong in a big way last week, a 34-3 win over the Jacksonville Jaguars, and a huge part of that wasn't just the D-line, it was the performance of the secondary, and that's why the spotlight today is going to go to Ambry Thomas. We talked a lot about him today on the pregame, a very up-and-down start to his career, had a couple of big plays, of course, an interception in the playoffs a couple of years ago, then sort of lost his gig, but had a good performance last week against Jacksonville. Steve Wilkes fired him up on the sideline despite a pass interference call. Ambry Thomas postgame said he plays pissed off, and that's what led to his great performance last week.
It felt good, but at the same time, I know I need to work on some things, and honestly, I'm out there playing piss. I felt like last year didn't go for me at all, mentally, physically, on the football, just like outside of football. I felt like it was all bad, and when I get on that field, I feel like I'm playing pissed, like I'm still pissed. Like we won, but I know I could have did better, and that's just my mentality. Like I don't care who out there, like I'm pissed right now.
He plays pissed. It's sort of like Jeff Wilson used to say, he goes to a dark place. Ambry Thomas last week had a forced fumble, had that tackle, and almost, by the way, ended up with a return for a touchdown. That would have been big for this guy's head, but I like that he's playing pissed off, and he can continue it today against a tough receiving core in Mike Evans and in Chris Godwin, and that's why Ambry Thomas is Week 11, this week's 49er Player Spotlight. The Hall of Famer, number 8, Steve Young, joins myself and Tom Tolbert every week of the football season. It's the best 30 minutes in radio. Sometimes it's more, sometimes it's an hour in radio. He's fantastic. Anyway, Steve Young this week, we talked to him about this 49er performance last week. He said the Niners need to push for home field advantage in the playoffs. They got to start stacking wins.
Really, with 3-game losing streak, losing twice on the road to teams that they know that's going to be painful when they're chasing the Eagles. We know home field's going to be big. That championship game.
Yep.
Look, you and I can do this. Players can't do this. Coaches can't do this. They can. Oh yeah, when we play the Eagles for the championship game, but home field advantage for that game is going to be big. And so we know we're a little bit behind the 8 ball, so we can't go 12-5, because you got to figure that the Eagles are a little bit better than that.
Well, they are better than that. The Eagles 8-1 right now. They take on the Kansas City Chiefs off of a bye. Both teams tomorrow night at Arrowhead Stadium. The Niners look to keep their hopes alive that getting the number 1 seed can move to 7-3 with a win today. That's the Steve Young Show. We'll continue our pregame right here from Levi Stadium next on the Sports Leader.
Getting you ready for the Bucs and the 49ers. John Lund, Adam Copeland, Super Bowl champion Dennis Brown. Let's go up to the booth. For my good friend and the play-by-play voice of your San Francisco 49ers.
Lester Posey's good friend.
That would be
Greg Papa.
Greg Papa.
Well, actually, I have Mike Kohler's very dear friend, and his daughter, Michaela.
What's up, Michaela?
Is in the booth today.
Oh, nice.
Killing my vocabulary before we even kick this one off.
She'll probably do a better job than Holler.
I've had to alter everything I say.
Oh, yeah, you got to watch yourself, huh?
Yeah, I've already dropped 4 MFs, but she's getting indoctrinated. Wait till the ball gets kicked off. Then
what about, when she's not this age, but, young kids, they put headphones on because it gets too loud. Maybe she could put some headphones on.
She's young, but she's great.
Maybe she take some of those MFs home to give to Mike later. You know what I mean? That'd be nice.
Well, I already gave 5 to Mike.
Yeah, I got some for him, too. I'll see him later.
Take him home.
Pick some up on the way in.
All right, we talked about this game all week long. How you feeling on game day? What are your sense? What's your sense here?
The Niners, just don't turn the ball over, play their game. They should be fine. And the one thing that Tampa Bay does do well is they take the ball away. Both intercepted. They get 8 of those, and they've taken 8 fumbles away. They're good on third down defensively, and they're good in the red zone. So you have to, we like our Jake Moody, but you don't want to go 3, 6, 9, 12. You want to go 7, 14, 21, 28, 35, and put a number on them. I think the key to the game today is the change in the secondary alignment. And I think moving Diamador Lenore inside, let's see if they go at him a little bit. Mike Evans, as we know, lines up almost all the time. 71% of the snaps he lines up as their X-wide receiver away from the tight end of the bunch side to the close side of the formation. And he lines up on the offensive left, which is the right corner, which is where Ambry is. And the other 29% of the time he goes in the slot. And he could match up with Diamador Lenore. We're going to hear Diamador Lenore in our pregame show. I had a long sit-down with him on Thursday, and that is certainly the favored matchup as far as the alignment against certain matchups. You'd rather have Isaiah Oliver match up with Mike Evans in the slot or even Chris Godwin. He used to live in there for years when Bruce Arians ran this offense and Byron Leftwich. Now he's not in there as much, and they run Trey Palmer in there. But I think Mike Evans at X-wide receiver on the offensive left and his ability to hit the deep one. And he drops a lot of balls. He misses a lot of targets. He's not a great route runner, but he's big and strong with a huge catch radius. And it sets off, right after this game, you roll into the 3 games we've been talking about forever, John. At Seattle, at Philadelphia, home to Seattle. And Mike Evans is one of those big, angular, tall guys you got to deal with. And then you got DK Metcalf on Thanksgiving night. He has been the quintessential X-wide receiver on the left side throughout his career, but Sanjay Lal's moving him around a little bit more. And then you go right into A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith in Philly, and then come back and see DK the second go-around here on December the 10th. So, obviously the way to combat that is to not let Mike Evans get deep and let the pass rush get to Baker Mayfield. But that's the the matchup I'm looking for right away. How does Ambry Thomas do today against Mike Evans in particular? And
to stay on Mike Evans, how important is it going to be for whoever's he's going to line up over to be physical, not to have him, I know there's a lot of man early downs at the 49ers play, but to be physical, to kind of reroute him, not give him an easy release off the line of scrimmage. How important would that be?
Well, you certainly want to do that. You want to jam him. And, there's maybe times where ordinarily last year, if D'Amico was still here, I think you'd see Charvarius Ward following Mike Evans around. They did that a lot last year with DK Metcalf, with DeAndre Hopkins, with Drake London before he got hurt in Atlanta. They're not doing that, and they're not going to do that today. But if Ward's on him, he can get up and press him. You got to be careful with him, though, because he's a long strider. He's not fast at 4.58 when you compare him to Goodwin or Trey Palmer or any of their other receivers. He's the slowest one, Tompkins or Jarrett. But he's got long legs and he's got build-up speed. So he gets those long strides going. He gets faster the more he runs. And then he's just so big and physical himself. Not a great route runner. He's kind of sloppy. A little bit like DeAndre Hopkins, I think. Not a pristine route runner, but doesn't need to be. And Baker will feed him the ball. Baker will feed him the ball for the big ball down the field. He's averaging over 17 yards a catch. Yeah. But the guy he looks to when he needs a big completion to move the chains is still Chris Godwin. And we saw Godwin last year come in off the ACL tear. Yeah, he had that week 15 the year before he wasn't himself. I was amazed to look at the numbers. He caught 104 passes last year from Tom Brady. Just insane. He doesn't separate like he did before, but he's big and strong, kind of an Anquan Bolden type guy. So certainly it's Evans deep and for the big play, but when he's got to have it, he does turn to Chris Godwin or even the tight end, K. Dotney, he turns to quite a bit.
I like you going Crash Davis on us, Greg. Long legs and brains. How about that?
Nice.
Yeah, we'll go there. Give me your thought on the screen game and how they stop Rachaad White. He's got the second most receiving yards for a running back behind Christian McCaffrey. That's part of their run game, really.
He does. 326 to McCaffrey's 339, and he's caught the third most footballs as a back behind Kamara and Christian. And he's caught every single target except one.
Wow.
And he's caught 21 in a row, and he knows how to set up screens. He's very patient, methodical. At times he reminds me a little of Le'Veon Bell, and I think Skip Pete, their running back coach, longtime running back coach in the league, would like him to move a little faster and be more violent, but he's a perfect screen catcher because he kind of plays at that gear where he's setting you up like he's blocking and then he releases out. And he's just deceptive. He makes people miss in space. He has forced 16 missed tackles this year, which is the most of any running back as far as in space. So he is a great screen running back, 35 receptions this year of 36 targets, including 21 in a row. So they all know that, and that's the one thing where the Niners defense got a little sloppy was on the running back screen to Dearness Johnson, of all people, in Jacksonville last week.
Yeah.
Not even ETN. So that's certainly a big part of it. Mike Evans, and then consistently, the ability, especially if you're going wide 9 and getting up the field, you are vulnerable to the running back screen, and this team is really good at it.
Let's get out of this one clean. Short week, got to go up to Seattle for Thanksgiving. Let's get out of this one clean with a W, a Florida sweep, and then go take care of business in the division. Have a great call, Greg.
All right, brother.
We'll see you
Tim
soon,
Ryan
man.
just walked in. We're good.
Is that the noise?
Michaela, you think I'm bad? Wait till you meet T-Rock. Good luck.
What up, Kayla? All right, we'll get you ready for the Niners and the
Give her the
Buccaneers.
smelling salts. Michaela. Fourth quarter.
She's like, I'm
Take
like
a
12
deep
years
breath.
old, 13 years old. Give me a break. She's all fired up. All right, Niners and the Buccaneers coming your way in about an hour and 10 minutes or so. We got kickoff at 1:05, pregame with the network guys, Greg Papa and Tim Ryan, who will be on the call today. We'll throw it to them in just a few minutes here. Final thoughts, Dennis, on Niners and the Bucs. Prediction, thoughts, final wrap-up?
Well, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how they come out. Last week they come out on fire. They build up a little bit of a lead. Then you see this defensive line kind of take over the football game. So it's going to be interesting to see how they come out. If they're going to be fired up, can't play down to a team like this. Not a very good football team. You should win this football game. But you got to do everything right. You got to execute. So the first snap is going to be interesting.
I don't think it's going to be 34-3 like last week, but like you said, this is a team they need to handle. They need to get out early. It'd be great if they could maybe rest Trent Williams a little bit with that quick turnaround on Thursday, rest some of the guys like they did last week against Jacksonville. But like Pop said, got to play a clean football game for that to happen. They should win. I think they're going to start getting on a roll like they have the last couple of years. I feel good about this one.
I do too. Secondary, I'm looking for them to repeat what they did last week. If you get after Baker and you hit him and you make him frazzled, roll out of the pocket, he's susceptible to turning the ball over. Only 4 interceptions on the season for Baker Mayfield, but if you get him out of the pocket running, I think this defense can confuse him. He's not a huge guy, but he can keep plays alive and he can beat you downfield. We just talked to Greg Papa. He was saying, when they need to move the chains, Chris Godwin is the guy they'll go to. He's got great chemistry, though, with Mike Evans because he's so big and strong. He will throw it up to him and just let him go get it. He's got over 700 yards receiving on just 40-plus receptions. Same situation for Chris Godwin, who's picking up big yardage as well on very little or very few targets. More targets, few receptions. That's what I'm trying to get to. He's been at a good rate, a good clip to this point. Adam Copeland, Dennis Brown, John Lund. Thanks to everybody who checked in today on the YouTube stream, the Twitch stream, twitch.tv/thesportsleader. We'll be back on the postgame show following the conclusion of the network postgame with Greg and Tim. Tracy Sandler, our friend from Fangirl Sports Network, is going to stop by and join us on the postgame. We'll get your calls. We'll get your thoughts after this Niners and Bucs game. We're also keeping an eye still on the Lions and the Chicago Bears in Detroit. That's a big game. Niners need to monitor that a little bit. Bears can help out the Niners in their hopes for a number 1 seed, but it gets real tough after this game. We go up to Seattle, still get 2 games against them, and then, of course, a matchup with the Philadelphia Eagles and the Baltimore Ravens on Christmas Day. We'll be back post-game for John Lund, Dennis Brown. I'm Adam Copeland. We hand it over to Greg Papa and to Tim Ryan, only here on KNBR 104.5 and 680, the Sports Leader.